All right. Well, welcome, my friends, to another episode of Extreme Health Radio. Super, super happy you are joining us on this Monday morning. Hope you had a great weekend. I sure did, and I hope you did too. This is going to be a cool show because we're going to be talking with Dr. Nadia Pateguana about intermittent fasting, and this is going to be really cool because this is a subject that I'm super interested in, and in my opinion, I think it has to be or should be a part of most people's program if they want to live a long time, they want to prevent disease, these types of issues. And I know there's obviously people that it's not good for, but we'll talk with her about that. I just found out that she's in Portugal right now. So this is really cool, like how the internet allows us for me to be in California, for her to be in Portugal, and you guys are listening live somewhere out in the world. And it's just amazing what is possible in today's world. I don't know why. Maybe growing up in the 80s and this is never possible in the 80s. So I'm continually blown away by the internet and the power of the internet. So this is going to be cool. Let's see. This is going to be episode 611. So if you guys want to grab the show notes are available at extremehealthradio.com/611. And if you guys are listening over on Dr. John Bergman's channel, wondering who I am and who Dr. Nadia is and what we're doing here on Dr. Bergman's channel, I completely understand. We are actually working with Dr. John Bergman on the Extreme Health Academy, and that's a platform for you guys to join that sort of takes all of our teachings and helps you guys implement a lot of these protocols and biohacks and teachings and information into your life in a more practical way. So we're working with Dr. John Bergman on that. So that's why we're broadcasting on Dr. John Bergman's channel. So if you're joining us over there, make sure to pop on over to the Extreme Health Radio channel because that's where I'll be reading all the questions from. So if you want to ask any questions, I will pop in and out of that chat and you can check out that as well. All right, so we've got a cool lineup of guests. Today we got obviously Dr. Nadia. We'll be talking with her about intermittent fasting. On Wednesday, we've got Dr. Darren Engels. He is a really great doctor, local doctor here, naturopathic doctor, and he's written a book about Lyme disease. So we'll be talking to him about that. Kate sees him on a regular basis, and he's helped her tremendously, especially during her pregnancy. So Dr. Darren's a cool guy. We're going to have him on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we're going to have Dr. William Pollack, and we'll be talking with him about pulsed electromagnetic fields and how they enhance your health and how they can benefit your health. So we'll be talking with him. So we're broadcasting every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. So if you guys want to join us, that's the place to do it at extremehealthradio.com, and you can find the links there. So today, this is going to be cool because I am really interested in fasting. We got Dr. Nadia Pateguana, and we'll be talking with her about intermittent fasting and fasting in general. And she's a graduate of the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine in 2004. She has a degree in honors in biology from McMaster University in 2000. And she's always been interested in helping people heal their body. She works with traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, homeopathy, nutrition, counseling, and all the other medical sciences. And she's currently right now working with Dr. Jason Fung and Megan Ramos over at the Intensive Dietary Management Program. And like I said before, I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting and the work that they do over there. So Nadia, can you hear me okay?
Very well. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Perfect. So yeah, thank you for being on today. And I was going to read a whole list of benefits of intermittent fasting and things like that, but I thought we could just go through that throughout the show. So before we start, as with most interviews, just tell everyone how you got started doing the work that you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. So I, as you said, was trained as a naturopath. I actually didn't follow through and practice as a naturopath. So all those great things you said about me, that I work with traditional Chinese medicine, that was the intent. I was trained for that. I did do quite a bit of acupuncture at probably the first few years of my career. I love it. But life sort of took me a certain way. I ended up going back to my home country right after I graduated in Canada. I went back to Mozambique for 10 years. I lived and worked in Mozambique for 10 years. And I practiced as a dietitian, just it was kind of a fluke. I needed to work, and that's what people wanted from me. They wanted help with metabolic syndrome and weight loss. So very early on in my career, I had to sort of learn how to help people with their diet, even though that's not what I was trained for. Not really, at least not as much as I wish that I had. Either way, I started probably advising the more traditional, conventional diets, lower calorie than I probably should have, lower fat than I probably should have. But along the way, I developed metabolic syndrome. So that's how it all kind of started for me, because it was all good when everybody else had to do the diet. But when
Right?
it was me, I wanted something that worked and quickly. And so I was diagnosed with PCOS. This is really what my, let's say, passion has been over the last few years, although I deal with all kinds of people with metabolic syndrome, mostly obesity and diabetes, but I struggled with fertility.
Hmm.
And we were just talking about you and your twin boys, and oh boy, twins, 2 months. Looking back. So I was fortunate enough to have two children myself, not twins, but 3 years apart. And it was through the help of lifestyle. Medication didn't work for me
Hmm.
because it didn't heal, it didn't address the root cause of my issue, which was insulin resistance. So this was it was just the ball just got rolling. First diet, and then intermittent fasting fell into place shortly, well, along the way, let's
Hmm.
say. Then I decided to go back to Canada 10 years after I was in Mozambique. When I had my second child, or I was pregnant with my second child, I decided that Canada was the place to be for my family and I, or we decided, my husband and I.
Uh-huh.
And then I learned about Dr. Fung and Megan Ramos. I had been doing some intermittent fasting myself because it just fell nicely with my lifestyle. I followed a strict low carb diet, ketogenic diet. And so I naturally had a longer overnight fasting period and a nice gap between meals. I would do a longer intermittent fast about once a week at the time, a 24-hour fast once a week. And that's as much as I was comfortable with doing at the time.
Right.
So then I met Dr. Fung at a conference. And as they say, when preparation meets opportunity, and he invited me to start working with him and Megan, and I did right away the first week. I initially worked with them in office in Toronto for about 2 years. And eventually our program started to focus more online. So at this point, that's why I'm in Portugal.
Oh,
As you
wow.
said, in the 80s, this wouldn't have been possible. But now it is. I work online full time and exclusively for IDM. So I am with the IDM program all the way. And it is a program that focuses on people with metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance through intermittent fasting therapies.
Hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's interesting that you said the progression of your own ability to fast, and I found that interesting too because in my own life it's much easier when you're eating, for me at least, a lot of sugar, a lot of fruit, and these types of high sugar foods. It's hard to do fasting, but when I started doing more keto and more protein and fats, man, fasting just became much easier for me. I'm sure the same way for you, right?
That's right. So actually, I'm glad that you said that because I thought I never really thought I had a healthy diet. But, a lot of people think they have this great healthy diet because they eat lots of fruit and all
Hmm.
kinds of health bars and whatever all day long. And that's kind of what I did. I
Uh-huh.
just ate every hour, every 2 hours, and grazed all day long. And I thought that was great. But it turned out that it caused me to have severe metabolic syndrome.
Hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. So this idea that for me, coming from like the weightlifting sort of world and spending a lot of time in gyms, they're always eating. Like I was watching something. There was some bodybuilder who was eating, I forget how many meals a day and calories a day, and he had this whole thing called on YouTube called Bigger by the Day, and he ended up dying because he was like 6 feet. I think he was 330 pounds of just solid muscle. Um, what's the problem with eating and snacking so much? Like, what's going on in the body, and why is that an issue for people? Do you think?
Well, at least from what we see, clearly, it's insulin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know that I work with Dr. Jason Fung and Megan Ramos, and Dr. Fung is an author as well as a kidney specialist, and he's written three very good and very well written books that address this root cause of this problem, which is insulin resistance, hyperinsulinemia. And so he's written the Obesity Code, the Complete Guide to Fasting, which is a very practical book into fasting, and
Mm-hmm.
the Diabetes Code. And he clearly explains how when you eat and what you eat and how that affects your insulin production. And so it's interesting that you mentioned that because I'm currently doing a project with Dr. Fung for women with PCOS. And one of my clients, quote unquote, it was more somebody that I knew very well. She was a performance athlete, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and she also exercised quite a bit and did some competitions too, and um, ate this way, right? Funny enough, because me and her kind of ate the same way.
Mm-hmm.
We snacked all day long, lots of, except that she would probably have a lot of protein shakes and whatnot. But really, we were just snacking all day long, high carb. She was carb loading, and I was just carb craving, I guess. I just, you know, and
Yeah.
she did all this exercise. So I think a lot of people think, well, the exercise, she needs to eat that way in order to exercise, and the exercise is going to spare her having the issues that I had. But it just so happened that both of us developed the exact same thing. So
Wow.
she was fit and I wasn't, but we both had metabolic syndrome. We both had PCOS and we both had fertility issues. So because I went through it first and I addressed it with diet. She also learned from my experience, and she was also able to reverse her metabolic syndrome. So although she was fit and very athletic and active, she still had a lot of visceral fat, which is fat around the organs, because
Oh.
of the way that she ate. And
Oh.
so this is something that should be addressed. And as you clearly said at the beginning, I think everyone should really think about this, and you said, who should fast and who shouldn't fast. And I'd love to talk a little bit about that. But everybody should concern themselves with not grazing, not
Mm-hmm.
eating all day long. There's just no amount of exercise that's going to save you from, I think, metabolic syndrome if you eat that way. Eventually,
Yeah.
the hormonal system is going to um, well,
And
insulin is going to do what it's supposed to do, right? Insulin is a storage hormone. You're going to go into storage mode.
yeah. Yeah, that was the biggest problem for me when I first got into health. It was like a couple years before I knew I needed to change my diet, but I was always really active. I would go surfing and I would go hiking and work out in the gym and play sports. But my diet was just horrible. And then I started getting into more like raw vegan and fruit and stuff like that, and I noticed big difference in my sugar and my energy levels and things like that. But yeah, so it's interesting. So when people are snacking all day long with no sort of regard, no margins to their time restricted eating or when they're not going to eat, what's going on? The body's creating insulin, too much insulin, or you become insulin resistant. And is this what's kind of going on inside the body?
Well, it's a bit of a physiology class here for sure, but in as we'll try to be as make as much sense as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
but but every time that you eat, regardless of whether you eat low carb, vegan, it really doesn't matter. But every time that you eat, your body naturally produces insulin in response to the energy in the blood, right? The food in the blood. So insulin has many jobs, many functions. We now know it's not just a metabolic hormone. It has many other functions. It has reproductive functions. It has sympathetic nervous system functions, growth functions, which are linked to certain tumors and cancers. So there's lots of functions to insulin. But every time that you eat, if your pancreas is functioning, you will produce insulin. If there is a nice balance between when you eat and when you don't eat, right? You're fed and fasted state, and if because you do need insulin. People that don't produce insulin are called type 1 diabetics. And we know that they don't do very well unless they have a daily injection of insulin. Children didn't thrive, and unfortunately didn't survive past a certain age before insulin was discovered. So we do need insulin. But what happens if you produce too much insulin? Hyperinsulinemia, so too much insulin in the body, will lead to insulin resistance, just like
Mm-hmm.
anything else. If there's too much of something, your cells will become certain cells. It's selective insulin resistance. Certain cells will become resistant to insulin. As a consequence, your body needs to produce more insulin in order to do the same job, which is to take the sugar. One of the jobs to take sugar, the glucose, out of your blood. It can't just stay in the blood, as we know from diabetics, because that will cause some harm. So then insulin takes it out of the blood and puts it into the cells. But if there's too much insulin in the body starts to become resistant to it. And then it produces more insulin. So then you go into this hyperinsulinemic state. And it's a negative feedback sort of thing, right? More insulin, then more resistance, and then more insulin. And so if there's too much insulin, you go into storage mode. Instead of burning storing and burning. You're just storing and storing and storing and storing. So what you eat will constantly produce more insulin and you will store more of that. Whether you store it in where you store it, I think is genetic, right? So some people tend to store it in their fat tissues and they become more obese, where some people tend to store it more in their organs. And I do think that that's clearly genetic. Neither is healthy, right? You don't want to be obese, and you definitely don't want to have excess fat in your organs,
Right.
which we see with people with fatty liver, which we see with people with type 2 diabetes, people like me that have PCOS. I wasn't ever obese, yet I had a lot of health concerns because of this excess insulin.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and what's scary kind of if you store it internally is that you don't really see it unless you have some sort of markers or unless you're blood testing a lot or you have some sort of symptom. That's kind of more scary if you're storing it internally because you just don't know, right?
You will know eventually. I mean, these are the people that tend to develop type 2 diabetes earlier in life. These are
Okay.
the people that tend to develop fatty liver. Um, the central obesity is the most concerning of them all. Obesity in general will aggravate any health concerns,
Mm-hmm.
but it won't necessarily cause
Mm-hmm.
certain health concerns. Yet, a central obesity and organ fat it
Mm-hmm.
will lead to serious health concerns. As I was saying, you know, during the time that I was trying to get pregnant and then did get pregnant, and I can go over that with you a little later about how that whole thing worked out. But I was on tons of medication, and again, I wasn't obese, but I was insulin resistant. I had
Wow.
hyperinsulinemia.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy. And so eventually you work through that. And so what was the catalyst that got you through all of that?
I think it's information,
Mm-hmm.
um, learning, because I didn't learn this in school.
Mm-hmm.
It's not conventional. It's not what we are being taught as naturopaths, as medical doctors, as dietitians, as nutritionists. A lot of people still, and for the last at least 50 years, have been focusing on this um, calorie theory of nutrition, right? That it really doesn't matter what you eat, it's how much you eat, it's how much you exercise. And that, why did I have all these health concerns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why at 30, why was I pre-diabetic, hypertensive, de depressed, and infertile?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I clearly didn't eat it too much because I was super thin. I
Mm-hmm.
was a super picky eater, and I just didn't never ate a meal in my entire life. I just had tons of sugar all day long, and by tons I mean it was small amounts because I didn't eat very much, but it was all day long. It was all I ever wanted to eat, and so I knew that there was something behind this. I was fortunate enough to figure it out along the way. I was dumb enough to not figure it out right away. I could have maybe figured this out with a very first pregnancy, but no, it wasn't that easy.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. It's amazing because fasting is, it's been a part of just, mankind's evolution and we've been doing it forever. But the idea of fasting, I think what people think of is they think of just deprivation and starvation. But, when you're fasting for specific purposes, for a specific, amount of time, or there's all kinds of different fasts too. Maybe we can start talking a little bit about that, because some fasts will work for certain people, some fasts won't work for other people. But it's been a part of our genetic makeup forever. And, in today's culture, it's just like it's snack, snack, snack all day long.
That's right. So a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about with you today is very well highlighted, not just in Dr. Fung's books, but in our blog, in the idmprogram.com website. Dr. Fung writes a weekly blog, which really makes up the 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 majority of his books, right? He puts all these thoughts together, all this research together, and then he writes
Mm-hmm.
books about it. And so he writes about all of this. And it's very interesting because he talks about that. And not, a lot of people hear this whole caveman thing, this paleo thing, Paleolithic thing, and paleo diet. But really, that's not what he's talking about. He's saying back in the 70s, people ate 3 meals a day. Everyone was fine, nice and healthy. Obesity was completely, it was a rare, if anything, people back in the 60s and 70s and 50s were worried that people were going to starve.
Uh-huh.
They had this big issue, a concern. And so, what happened? What happened in the last 50 years? Why did our dietary guidelines change so much? And why did people start eating every 2 hours and practically being charged with child abuse if you don't send your kids a snack and feed them every 2 hours? It's a lot of industry influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so really this is what we look at. We're not talking about you should or have to eat the way that cavemen ate, although some people choose to because it works for them. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about eating, giving your body enough time to burn what you eat and keeping your insulin and your hormonal levels balanced
Mm-hmm.
in equilibria, right? So this is really what we're talking about here. You're totally right. We're not people do all kinds of fasting periods. I'm very comfortable with doing time restricted eating, like you said, which for me just means that I have full meals. I don't snack. Although I don't have as many meals as maybe other people have, like my kids. My kids eat 3 meals a day. I usually eat 2 meals a day, sometimes 1 meal a day, because I follow a very random intermittent fasting period. I do that not because I like to starve myself. I
Mm-hmm.
do it because when I eat, I make sure that I eat till I'm satisfied and I eat the right types of food most of the time.
Uh-huh.
If I eat a meal that's a little higher in carbs, like you said, and sugars, I'm craving and I'm need to eat in a couple of hours. That should be a sign that something ain't right,
Yeah,
right? Like
right.
if you need to eat, if you've eaten a full meal and you need, although people have been told that no, this is a great sign. It's a sign of a good metabolism. But then these are the same people that develop diabetes and obesity. So obviously your metabolic system is not working well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I watched a documentary a couple years ago about fasting, and it really piqued my interest. And for me, it's like one of those things where it feels so comforting. It's kind of like when you wrap your babies up and you swaddle them, and it's like they just feel that comfort of being restricted. For me, it's kind of the same way with having these margins where I know that I don't eat during these times. And, what's cool about it too is I do the intermittent fasting thing. So I'll usually eat dinner around 6, and then I won't eat again until about noon the next day. And that gives me about 16, 18 plus or minus hours of fasting. But it's just, there's something about having those margins when you know that you're not eating during those times and you are eating during the 6 hour window that you are eating. And I don't know, there's something comforting about that. Do you feel the same way?
For sure. And I think that schedule that you just described is probably one of the most common.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel comfortable, particularly because I don't feel like I need to eat every hour. It was for me, I developed, as I said, this condition because of what I ate and how I ate. And I developed rebound hypoglycemia. So I would be very shaky in
Oh,
between
wow.
meals. Not to mention that it had a tremendous impact on my mood as well. So because I produced too much insulin and produced it all the time, I would get probably high blood sugars at some point. I started to anyway, but then I would get dips very low. And so that did not feel good. The fact that I don't get that anymore for me is, I don't know if I would describe it as freedom, but it definitely feels much better mood wise. I'm healthier. I'm not on medications. I couldn't ask for a lot more. So I don't, as I said, I don't starve myself. Fasting and starving are two completely different things. Okay. This is the important thing to realize that people are fasting in between meals. And you can prolong your fast as long as you're comfortable and as long as it's safe, depending on what your objective is. So, yes, you could go through periods of longer fasts, and many people do. As long as you're informed, as if you're doing it safely, if you're getting proper supervision. But most of the time, when we're talking about fasting, we're talking about intermittent fasting. So, eating and then if you're eating enough and you're not hungry between meals, that will allow you to have these gaps that you talked about. The 6 to 8 hour gap between two meals is really important, particularly for lowering that insulin level so that your body can go into a slight burning mode and then eating again and then allowing that larger gap until the next day so that your body can do this properly so that you're not building up these abnormal hormone levels and even in some cases reversing this,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, that's interesting you say that because I've been sort of like doing the 6 hour gap or my 6 hour sort of feeding window. I was joking. It sounds like you're a cow or something, a feeding window. But I've been doing this sort of 6 hour feeding window. But I haven't been, my diet's been the same, but I haven't really been like doing the one meal and then letting enough time go by, eat your dinner and have that be a second meal. I've kind of been sort of snacking and eating, but then leaving it at that 6 hour window. And I wonder if what you're talking about probably would be even better, wouldn't it?
It definitely would. If you had metabolic syndrome, not leaving that gap in between the two meals wouldn't help you reverse it. What might be
Oh,
happening with you, Justin, is because maybe you came at this at a healthy level already,
uh-huh.
and you were utilizing intermittent fasting as a weight maintenance program. And so maybe that's working for you. Maybe that 16-hour overnight fast is all that you need. Although I think that over time, that insulin might build up because the grazing and snacking between those two meals might not do you good long term. If you were metabolically deranged, that 16-hour fast might not be enough to reverse it if you were eating throughout that 6 hour period.
Oh, okay, okay. So maybe I'll do like a breakfast sort of midday or maybe kind of a lunch and then just a big dinner, leave a big 6 hour or maybe 5 hour window and then do what you're talking about. I like that.
Yeah, so that's what I would probably encourage most of the time, a good 6 to 8 hour gap between meals. If you're eating a proper meal, that should be enough. If you're very healthy, and really you're going at this from a health maintenance plan, or we're talking about younger people or people who shouldn't fast for longer periods for whatever reason, you could do three full meals as well and have 12 to 14-hour fast, overnight fast, and maybe 4 or 5 hours between meals. I'm not sure. I mean, there's so much that you could do with this, but for sure, you want to be in a fasted state and a fed state, and these need to be separate.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now, Nadia, and I want to come back and ask you about different types of fasting. Like we're talking now about intermittent fasting, but then there's also the 5-2 program or the 6-1 program, and there's different types of fasting that you can do to optimize your health and maybe why someone would want to consider fasting. For me, I'm doing it more for longevity, disease prevention, these types of things like that. So we'll talk with you a little bit after the break about that. But I wanted to tell you guys, so many of you have been writing in asking about the Symbiotica, and we just love this stuff. It's created by our friends Matt Blackburn and Shervine over at Symbiotica.com, and it's a DHA algae extract. And according to Dr. Jack Cruz, DHA is like the number one nutrient that we could all be consuming because it's such mitochondrial food. It's basically food for your mitochondria to help build that electrical charge, that voltage in your body. Like Dr. Jerry Tennant says, healing is voltage, and we're electrical beings. And so DHA allows us to hold on to more light in the body, to create ATP across the mitochondrial membrane so that the body can have more energy. It's just an incredible substance. And so that's why we like taking this algae-based DHA. And Kate's been on it during her whole pregnancy, and just the kids are thriving. So it's a nervous system food. It's a brain food. It's incredible substance. So make sure to check that out. And they're kind enough to give you guys a 15% discount. So if you guys want to talk or get 15% off, type in the code EHR, and that's available in our store at extremehealthradio.com. And I wanted to tell you guys, too, about this other sort of mitochondrial food or substance. It's called molecular hydrogen. And I don't know if you guys have seen, a lot of people are talking about molecular hydrogen these days. And I pulled up an article here, and we're going to have Tyler LeBaron on the show. He's sort of the world's leading authority on hydrogen, and he's like got a hydrogen foundation. I mean, all he does is study this stuff. And he says it is such a small molecule, the smallest molecule actually, but its cell modulating properties in biological systems is what affords it the various anti-inflammatory, anti-allergy, and anti-obesity effects. And we just had Brian Hoyer on the show talking about EMF radiation And what's interesting is he was talking about molecular hydrogen as a way to combat EMF because it's such a small molecule. It actually has the ability to get, it's one of the only things I think that can get into the mitochondria. So it's an amazing substance, and I highly recommend you guys check it out. There's a lot of different ways to get it in the body. You can buy, like if you click here, if you guys are watching on YouTube, there's actually hydrogen gas machines that you can buy to create your own molecular hydrogen water. But those are very expensive. Vital Reactions sells them, and you can get them through our store if you guys like. But I would recommend starting out with the tablets, and they're really cool. There's just a bunch of tablets, and you can put it in water, and it sort of fizzes up, like that antacid medicine you take when you're a kid back in the 80s. But this is molecular hydrogen infused water. So I'm telling you guys, this stuff is the future, and make sure to check that out. So if you guys want access to that, is there a coupon code for that? Yeah, there is. Yeah, that's great. EHR10, and you get 10% off. So you can check out that, and as well as the Symbiotica DHA if you guys want to improve your health. So let me bring Nadia back, and I wanted to ask you, Nadia, about the different sort of ways that people could fast, like the 5 and 2, the intermittent fasting, because when people have sort of a structure that they feel that works good with their schedule, then they feel like, I can do this because it works with my lifestyle, works with my job, stuff like that. So what are some different ways people might introduce fasting into their lives?
I think that long term, you want something that's very fluid, that is so that it can be sustainable. I like a random sort of pattern that fits into my life because my life, uh, you know, maybe many days are similar, but some weeks are different than others. So you want to be able to try a few different things and see what works for you. Maybe it'll work at different times, different things will work. But I think the main focus is time restricted eating. I think that's the main thing. The idea of eating full meals, whole foods, and avoiding snacking, and that's called time restricted eating. Intermittent fasting for some people is what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
Justin, which is kind of prolonging your natural fasting period. We all fast, okay, as you said. Even people that are eating 10 times a day have a fasting period. Usually it's during their nighttime. Unfortunately, many people nowadays only fast while they're eating, and that's very has not been part of our natural human evolution, right? Because we don't um, we didn't eat as late as we eat now. Okay, this is another very modern thing because both parents work, kids have activities, and so people are eating dinner much later. I think traditionally, most cultures, people used to eat dinner by 6 o'clock. That was pretty common.
Uh-huh.
And I still think that we do better by following that type of pattern. And maybe they eat breakfast at 8 and then maybe a lunch meal. And so I still think that's the key thing. But therapeutically, you can introduce different fasting periods, right, to help reverse, as we said, metabolic syndrome and different expressions of metabolic syndrome. So intermittent fasting being one of them, or
Mm-hmm.
you stretch your overnight fasting period. So instead of, 12 or 14 hours, maybe it's 16 or 18 hours. And then maybe instead of doing 3 full meals a day, you're doing 2 meals a day. Not necessarily eating less, just eating less often.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And so then we have things like alternate day fasting schedules. That's pretty common as well. There's a 24-hour alternate day fasting pattern, which basically means that every second day you fast for a longer period of instead of 16 to 18 hours, a 24-hour period. So usually what people on those days are eating one meal on their fasting day, and they're
Okay.
eating their regular 2 or 3 meals on their eating day. And then there's a 36-hour alternate day fast and a 42-hour alternate day fast. Normally a 36-hour alternate day fast means that people eat 3 regular meals on their eating day and then maybe no meal on their fasting day. So it's, that's a pattern. And then a 42-hour alternate day fast is for people that are very comfortable with a lower carb diet and intermittent fasting schedule. And so they eat their regular 2 meals on their eating days. So they follow that 16-hour natural or longer overnight fast, and then skip a day and have no meals on that day. So these are therapeutic fasting schedules that are usually done successfully with proper information guidance, and if done safely. there are some prolonged fasting periods, but those are always advised for people that have proper guidance and medical supervision. But people have done, even in literature, you can find evidence of people that have done some longer therapeutic fasts with medical supervision quite successfully.
Hmm. Yeah, is there's studies with mice showing calorie restriction and increased lifespan and a direct correlation between the two. And if you think about intermittent fasting, if you're going to be sort of shaving off one of your meals, like a breakfast or a dinner or something like that, you're essentially cutting out one meal a day. Over the course of a year, that's 365 meals that you don't have to sort of process in your body. And then over the course of 5 or 10 years, you're looking at thousands of meals that your body never had to process. And is that one of the reasons why less going through your body is a less stress? And is that one of the reasons why these mice are living longer when they do those studies? Do you think?
I'm not sure about the mice, but with humans, we know the calorie restriction, although it might increase longevity. Because I think that even in different cultures, they traditionally eat less.
Mm-hmm.
They stop eating before they're full, and I think that there's some evidence about longevity. But when we're talking about metabolic syndrome
Mm-hmm.
and obesity, cutting calories doesn't seem to be a successful approach long term. So that's
Okay.
not what we focus on. It's not actually eating less, it's eating less often. So a lot of people choose to do both a low carb diet and intermittent fasting at the same time. And by switching to a lower carb diet, they're lowering their intake of carbohydrates, but they're increasing their intake of fat, which actually has more than double the amount of calories per gram than carbs and even protein. So that is not why people are losing so much weight, because most of these people are actually not eating less. They might even be eating more. They're just eating less often.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of also doing small meals like snacks or grazing, they're having full meals. So really, it doesn't seem to be the reduction of calories that is helping these individuals. It's really the reduction of insulin, the eating less often.
Eating less often. Yeah, that's the big key. And I like. So, do you do yourself any of these different? It sounds like you probably do like an intermittent fasting, sort of a daily thing. And then, in terms of the other modalities, do you yourself participate in other types of fasting as well, on top of the intermittent?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
do for
Yeah.
sure. I like I said, I like following a more random pattern. So I kind of get to decide day by day how many meals am I going to have today. If I want to have two meals, I make sure that my first meal is before 12 o'clock.
Okay.
That's important because I don't want to eat late. And the way that I eat, I don't get hungry in less than 6 hours. So if I eat a meal at 2, um, that's going to have to be my only meal of the day.
Ah.
And so
Okay.
I plan for it. Like today, I had a meal at 2 o'clock because I started my calls at 3. And so I
Ah.
had a really nice meal. I could probably show you a picture of my meal because I take pictures of them, I share with my people. But it was a big meal, right? It was 3 eggs, a whole bunch of bacon, half an avocado, and I tried this new recipe for this macadamia nut bread. So a lot of calories, very rich. I had my meal and I am good. It's now for me, I know it's super early for you guys. It's 7:30 p.m. for me. First of all, my eating window is closed. Unless I was going out for dinner and there's a social event, which, I'm still human. I'm not going to eat at this time. My children have eaten. My husband has eaten.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to eat at this time, but I'm not hungry. That's the thing that for me is key. I've eaten. My body is satisfied. I've eaten. I'm also in a more fat adapted state, which just means that if I'm not eating, my body still knows where to get fuel. I don't do super long fasts. I don't have the motivation to, of course. But I do prep for a long, which most of you would consider to be a very long fast.
Mm-hmm.
About once a month, I do a 72-hour fast, water fast.
Oh my goodness.
Um, yeah, and
Wow.
that's something I'm very comfortable with. I prep for it. I take a proper amount of electrolytes. Um, yeah, and I'm pretty good to do that for the same reason that you said, sort of disease prevention, health promotion. I believe that there's, I believe, thanks to what some evidence, of course, out there and things that we've seen clinically. There's quite a few years of some clinical experience that we've had now, thanks to Megan and Dr. Fung. And I believe that it does provide some benefits. It certainly does for me. It
Hmm.
doesn't, it has helped me a lot with so many things, with mood, as I said, with obviously keeping my own metabolic syndrome under control, but so many other things.
Hmm.
My
Yeah.
skin, my skin is so much better. You have to realize I come from a PCOS condition, so I
Yeah.
had acne my whole life, and adult acne. So the fact that I can
Wow.
not have acne, this is key. And I get it again. As soon as I go a little crazy, the
It'll come
first thing
back.
that happens is I get, and my clients see it, and I'm very honest about it. I'm like, see what happens to me, and then I know what to do, and it resolves. So I do a combination of intermittent fasting, some extended fasting, and a lower carb diet.
I mean, yeah, it makes complete and total sense that we would be fasting and not eating as much as we are in today's culture. I mean, it's just, it makes so much sense. And giving your body that break. And, when you're not eating, also, there's got to be so many enzymatic processes that are happening and so many different things, autophagy, cellular cleanup, and all these types of processes that are sort of happening, right? And sometimes, when I get like right now I haven't eaten and I don't know how long it's been, but it's 11:35 a.m. here. And so, but there are times when, but right before I eat, I'm sort of the hungriest and I just, my body starts producing ghrelin and I'm just like, I feel the hunger in my stomach, but I just sort of go into that and tell myself, this is what is normal and natural. And your body's actually healing when you're starting to feel those hunger pains.
I don't think hunger, if you're trying to prolong a fast, I don't think hunger is something that should scare you. A lot of
Mhm.
people look at it as, oh, great, now my body's going to burn some fat and provide the fuel that I need. Because people don't just die when they're hungry, right? Or you would just die, as Dr. Fung would say, you would die every single day.
All right.
And
Totally.
that doesn't happen, right? If anything, you get a boost of energy. You also don't get tired when you're hungry. Your body doesn't go, oh no, I haven't had lunch. Now I'm gonna sleep all afternoon. That doesn't happen. You get a boost of energy.
Hmm.
And as if you do become more fat adapted, as they say, that's even more obvious, right? The mental clarity. And so again, the focus is not that you don't eat ever, it's that you eat and you stop. If you want to prolong a fast every once in a while and skip an extra meal, because as you said, the autophagy thing, there's so much cellular cleanup and anti-aging, anti-cancer. We don't know enough about autophagy. I don't think we know nearly enough, but what we do know does make it sound very appealing that you would stretch these fasts out a little bit. At the
Hmm.
same time, as I was saying a little earlier, keeping in mind that you want to keep your metabolic rate pretty revved up. So you want to make sure that when you eat enough. So fasting and starving as a combination is not a great thing.
Hmm.
Fasting and feasting seems to be great, and that's more what people used to do.
Hmm. I want to ask you about a couple different things with regards to fasting, because obviously there's different sort of time frames, like we talked about, the 5 and 2, intermittent fasting, is all that stuff that we talked about, and then there's also different types of actual fasts themselves. As you know, people are fasting on certain liquids and juices and all these types of different fasts, but for me, I'm primarily concerned with the water fasting, which is what I do. So I'm going to ask you about some of these liquids. If I'm doing a water fast, for example, um, what would I have a list of things, and I'm wondering if you think it would actually break my fast. And these are tea, coffee, water, obviously not water because if you're doing a water fast, bone broth, apple cider vinegar, almond milk, and green juice. In my mind and in my opinion, all of those things would probably break a fast if you're strictly doing a water fast for much of the benefits we talked about today. Some people say coffee doesn't. What do you think about those substances there?
I think that the what will break my fast is probably the most common question, but the hardest question to answer because I
I
don't
know.
even know that people know what they're asking when they're asking what breaks my fast,
Uh
right?
huh.
Because are you asking, will it inhibit autophagy? Are you asking if this particular nutrient or whatever liquid is going to increase my insulin? That's the question. Is what are you asking?
Uh huh.
Because If you're fasting and if you're doing a water fast, it means you're abstaining from everything else. And anything that you consume is going to break that fast because you're fast, you're trying to abstain from everything. But maybe that's not what you're trying to do. Maybe what you're trying to do is to lower your insulin in between your fast. And so then you have to say, does coffee raise insulin? I don't know. It seems like it doesn't for most people, but it seems to raise insulin for other people. The problem with coffee is that a lot of people don't have it black. They have it with something,
Mm.
cream or creamer or milk and so all of these nutrients will raise insulin. And some will raise insulin a lot more than other things. And in some people, particularly insulin resistant people, will have a higher insulin response to certain foods. So if you're trying to do a water only fast, then you should stick to a water only fast. So stick that's short period of time, right? Because again, you're not fasting forever. You're fasting for a determined period of time. Then you should stick to water. Um, and really I encourage it, and I think it's a necessity. I don't encourage dry fasts at all. I know some people practice that and follow it. That is not what I'm comfortable with. But
Hmm.
then things like coffee and tea, black coffee and black tea seem to be fine, and they have certain properties that might actually help with hunger and help with fat burning, maybe some fat burning properties even in some of these components. So that might be okay. Um, when we talk about autophagy, like I said, we don't know nearly enough. But what we do know about autophagy is that there are many different nutrient receptors. And so any nutrient is likely to inhibit autophagy. So if you're looking for autophagy, then again, keep your nutrients to your meals. When you're fasting, have no nutrients, right?
Hmm.
So bone broth is a good one to consider. Bone broth can be a great adjunct to a longer fast because not only will it give you a little push, we call it that training wheels or crutches.
Yeah.
It might give you a little push to fast a little longer, but it also has some good electrolytes in there. And one of the concerns about fasting longer is that you might dehydrate. And so that's something that we always want to consider.
Hmm.
It's obviously safer to fast for shorter periods because then you don't have to worry about that. But if you do choose to fast for longer periods, then you do have to worry about electrolytes.
Hmm.
And so that might be something that you might want to consider when you're doing a longer fast.
Hmm.
Will it break your fast? Again, it depends on what you mean. Does it raise insulin? Yes. Does it inhibit autophagy? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good. So you're really getting more and more specific about what it means to break a fast. That's cool because a lot of people just say, "Oh, break a fast," but like you said, what does that actually mean? And so the two main things that could mean, or what people might mean when they say that, are the autophagy component and the insulin. Is that kind of the idea?
I think so. I think
Okay.
that's what people mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or
It's
they,
it's.
they don't even know that that's what they mean, but that's what they should mean. Or maybe
Right.
some people are just like, I'm fasting to lose weight.
Uh-huh.
If I have something in my fast, will I still be able to lose weight? Maybe that's what they mean by breaking a fast. And
Yeah.
again, if it raises your insulin enough, you might not lose weight. But if it's a insignificant increase in insulin, you might be fine to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. So, in terms of like what a lot of people are concerned about, and for me too. I mean, I am sort of a slight person. I'm 6 feet, 170 pounds, 175 pounds, but I lose muscle really easily. But I haven't found any muscle loss. In fact, I do my workouts in a fasted state to help produce more hormones and to boost hormones and testosterone, things like that. I haven't found any issues with it, but I know that if I were to do like a 3-day fast, for example, I would go into it a little bit worried. So talk a little bit about the muscle loss and sort of myth that people think about with that.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a great question. And like you, a lot of our clients are concerned about that. And that's another question. But a lot of times people will do DEXA scans where
Hmm.
they'll check their body composition before, during, and then, when they reach their goal. And you don't see that. You don't see muscle loss. If anything, you see muscle gain. So there's
Wow.
something behind that. And clearly you've been reading up on this because there's some benefits to working out in a fasted state, more growth hormone production. So there's clear evidence, clinical and otherwise, behind this. So I'm going to quote Dr. Fung again, where he says the body's not that stupid. Okay. It's not going to burn your muscle when it has fat to burn. It isn't even a pathway. I think that what people are confused about is because our body has a way to store energy as glycogen, and it stores it primarily in the liver and the muscles. But the glycogen storage in the muscles is exclusive to the muscles. So that doesn't, it gets burnt off as your muscles need it. It's not the muscle that gets burnt. And then, of course, the body will first go and use the glycogen stores in the liver for energy. When it's not eating, it will use that first. And eventually, if you fast long enough, it will get to your fat stores. That's what's called ketosis. And that's
Hmm.
why people practice this ketogenic diet. It doesn't go and break down muscle. I think the other thing is, as people start to hear more about autophagy and this protein recycling, I
Hmm.
think that maybe they think that that protein is coming from your muscles.
Hmm.
You want to get rid of these old proteins, right? And as you're losing weight and as people are breaking down skin and losing weight, you're recycling and getting rid of these old proteins. It's the buildup of these old proteins that's causing a lot of disease as well.
Hmm.
But that's not breaking down your good muscle. I don't see any evidence of that whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah, and apparently you'd probably have to fast for a long time in order for you to sort of go through all the fat in your body and internal and visceral fat, and then
But
go
then
for your
why are you
muscle.
fasting for prolonged periods of time if you don't have excess fat storage? What's the point? Is it
Right.
autophagy that people are looking for? You could
Yeah.
reach autophagy many times if you just fast for shorter periods more often.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Dr. Fung is very clear about this, and not only does he say the body isn't that stupid, he says don't be that stupid, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't have enough fat storage, what's the point behind longer fasts?
Yeah, unless you're doing it for, I don't know, maybe someone has a, disease process they're trying to work on or something like that, but yeah.
That is true, and those are specific cases with proper medical supervision. But
Hmm.
then they're not worried about losing muscle
Right.
or anything else. They're worried about something. So if you're talking about cancer, for example, there are people that do I personally don't follow any of these clients myself, but I know that there are people that do prolong fasts during their treatments because there is some evidence behind it. And people have anecdotally said that it's helped, and there's some protocols being put in place for that in all kinds of places.
Hmm.
But then they're not worried about, well, maybe they are. And so there's a balance. Again, the feasting and fasting is really key, because
Hmm.
you're not just fasting forever. Even if you were doing a 3-day fast, how much muscle do you think, if any, you would lose during a 3-day fast? And you can build that up, and this is what we're seeing in these DEXA scans. If anything, people are building more muscle over time.
Hmm.
We're very conscious about telling people to fast and feast.
Yeah, that's awesome. Got a question here from Facebook, or no, I'm sorry, YouTube. But it all, this is kind of like this question is kind of very general and sort of like the question I asked a few minutes ago about, what does it take to, or what actually breaks a fast? And you were more specific in saying, what do you mean by that? But Danielle DeWolf on Facebook or on YouTube says, what are the benefits of a 2 to 3 day bone broth fast? But I guess that depends on what goal they're trying to do, and on a lot of factors, right?
It also depends on how often you're having that bone broth. So this is what I was saying to you before. If you're having a cup of bone broth once or twice a day, sort of to push you through those more critical periods of the day to get some electrolytes in, that could be super beneficial. But if you're having 6 cups of bone broth a day, those are 6 insulin responses right there,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
remember that our ultimate objective is to lower insulin. And so you're not eating enough, number one. So it's a calorie restriction. It's starvation and not fasting, but you're still raising your insulin. So really you're not doing what you want to be doing. It might result in some weight loss initially, as we see with any calorie restricted diet, but it won't work long term probably. And again, it really depends. I'm not saying that a cup or two of bone broth is gonna do that. I'm talking about people that are like you mentioned juicing, right? Like juice
Mhm.
fasts. I'm
Right.
not a big fan of those, right? Because really it's just a calorie restriction. You're not really fasting. You're just starving. You're just having small amounts of food all day long. and really not in the best state either, because you really would like to have those vegetables whole with the fiber together, because the fiber is what's going to protect you from that insulin spike, from that sugar absorption of the vegetables or fruit.
Hmm. Yeah, it's the fiber that's so important there, and especially if people are juicing, what's happening is they're getting so much sugar as well. If you're doing like a carrot juice, and basically, even if you juiced a ton of green leafy vegetables and celery, you're still going to get an insulin response, right? Because there's still sugars in that, right?
Absolutely. And the problem with juicing is that you're removing the fiber, which is the protective, nature's protection against these sugars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So really, when you're juicing, you have to think about that you're getting a significant higher amount of sugar than if you were eating the vegetables whole. But then again, we're losing the focus here, because if you're eating vegetables, then you're not fasting.
Yeah, exactly, right. It's like,
Have
uh,
these vegetables during your meal. That's the whole point.
yeah, yeah. That's what I've
Fasting and
been.
feasting.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing too. I take a bunch of different supplements, and I like the liquid supplements actually, but I do it within my fat or my feeding window now. And so, there's different things. Like there's one I take called Intramax, and that has a little bit of sugar in it. And there's one called Liquid Light, I think by Sun Warrior. That's a mineral supplement. But now I just do all of those during my feeding time. And so during my non-feeding time, the only thing I actually consume during my non-feeding time is water, and I put a little pinch of salt in there. Do you think that's having any detrimental effect?
So again, when it comes to autophagy, we don't know.
Okay.
Okay. But we do know that when you fast, you do lose some electrolytes.
Hmm.
So it is good to replenish with electrolytes. How much you need and how to take it, that's a different thing, and usually addressed individually. But I'm not a big fan of putting salt in my water. I find that it goes through my GI and it goes right through me. For a lot of people, it actually ends up causing loose stools. I don't absorb it that way. I tend to take my salt when I am fasting, smaller amounts in under my tongue, and that goes into my bloodstream. So again, also because I do practice some longer fasts than some people would, but I particularly find that I need a little bit more salt when I'm fasting than other people. Some people don't need much for these shorter fasting periods, but if you are practicing some more prolonged fast, you are going to have to get some guidance on electrolytes supplementation.
You know what might be kind of a good idea is they have those special scales now where they, shoot sort of like an infrared light at the bottom of your foot, and it tells you your bone mass and your bone amount of bone weight and blood and muscle. That might be kind of a cool thing to sort of track and monitor as you're fasting, right?
I do have some clients that use that as a guide. I don't know how accurate they are. Some people seem to think that they're pretty accurate, and so it might be a nice, comforting way for you to check as you're going along. I still think that getting a DEXA scan done, a body composition proper test done, is not a bad idea if you're planning on embarking in this sort of journey and lifestyle. If you get a baseline, then you know what you're dealing with, and then as you go along the way, people usually do them every 3 months or so. You
Uh-huh.
get a really good idea, and these DEXA scans are really good because as we were talking about earlier, for people like me that tend to be thinner and tend to put their fat on all the wrong places, it really does show you where your fat is. It doesn't just tell you a percentage, it shows you where it is. So as you progress, you'll be able to see where your body fat percentage has changed the most. I had a client this last week. She was telling me about her last DEXA scan, and she says that she always had this one issue where her one thigh was about 2 inches larger than the other thigh.
Hmm.
And since she's been fasting for almost a year now, her two thighs are the same. This is the first time in years that, at least that she remembers as an adult,
Wow.
that it's, and so there's a lot of interesting stuff that's going on that we may not even realize.
Yeah. What kind of fasting program is she on? The one that you just mentioned? Is she
Bridget. So Bridget does, she does a lot of extended fasts, to be
Okay.
honest. She's a massage therapist. So
Oh, wow.
she has a very active job, and she's very comfortable doing some more extended, numerous days. Um, she's
Wow.
done very well, and this is why she does these DEXA scans, because again, she's out to prove that she's stronger and more muscular. But she does work on her feasting as well, so some,
Uh-huh.
her proper intermittent fasting schedule on her eating days.
So what you're saying is that if someone is eating more calories, or if they're eating more food, but it's, assuming it's high quality food, right? Maybe they're doing like a ketogenic diet, or maybe they're doing all organic and it's ketogenic, and they're eating a lot. So if someone were to eat more food, more calories in a restricted window, that would be, in your opinion, better than someone extending that feeding window for the majority of the day, right? So even though they're eating more calories and it's all high quality food, that's still better because it's a time restricted thing, right?
I do, but you want to stay away from this idea of, for example, of doing only one meal a day, or what's commonly known as OMAD, one meal a day. And
Uh-huh.
there's a big trend behind this where people are fasting for 20 to 24 hours and eating just one meal. I don't think that that works out very well long term. So again, your eating days should be 2 to 3 large meals, and then your fasting periods can be as long as you're comfortable with, or as long as it's safe for you to do, and with proper supervision if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So focusing on fasting and feasting. Yes, on your eating days, you should be focusing on rich meals and enough nutrients so that your metabolism is not suffering in the process.
Mm-hmm. There's a guy, you probably know about him, Dr. Amin Ra. Are you familiar with that guy? Dr. Amin Ra. He's done a few interviews and he's just like this. He's like a vegan sort of strongman bodybuilder, and he's got this whole program where he does exactly what you were just recommending people not do. Is he'll fast for 23 hours, but then you see this guy, and his physique looks phenomenal. If you look him up on YouTube, you'll see some interviews that he's done, and he's got this whole spiritual approach that he does to it, and different amino acid elixirs that he does during his, he's got this whole thing that he does. But I don't know how
I'm
old he is, but
actually
his physique is incredible, and who knows, right?
I'm actually so glad that you mentioned that. So these are not the 99.99% of people that I get to treat.
Uh
So
huh.
unless your body looks like that, and unless you're coming from a very healthy stance and you're not looking to lose weight, you're looking for a whole bunch of other benefits, then one meal a day is not a good idea. Okay? Because you might lose some weight initially, but eventually your metabolism will catch up because your metabolic intake and expenditure are not separate from each other. There's an internal communication mechanism through hormones. So if you're looking to lose weight and to continue to lose weight, doing one meal a day is not what IDM considers to be a good intermittent fasting schedule.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Yeah, I'm just sort of bringing this guy up here. He's just crazy. His
So
whole
this
whole
guy
pro.
particularly, I don't know him actually. I've
Yeah.
never seen this. I was making a face because sometimes people ask me and I should know of somebody and I don't.
Uh
1,200 calories a day is not what I would recommend for most of my clients, but for him, for that is what he needs to maintain where he's at right now. That seems super low for somebody with that physique, to be totally honest,
huh.
but that seems to work for him. Okay. Again, I don't see these kind of people. These are not my clients. Okay. Not at all.
You don't get an Amin Ra coming in to see you for help, right?
I don't. And
Yeah.
actually, Megan is working real hard on creating a specific program for people that are at a different level, exercise performance and all of that. That is not my clientele.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the people that I deal with. I deal with people with diabetes, obesity, fertility concerns that may exercise quite a bit and are very interested in knowing, how to exercise properly around their fasting schedules. And I'm pretty comfortable helping with that, but I don't see these kind of people for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, he's kind of an extreme guy. One final question, because I want to make sure we get you out on time. We're a couple minutes late, but I wanted to, a lot of people bring up this idea that women and men, it should be different in their fasting, and, women handle this differently. And there's a lot of talk in our online community, our Extreme Health Academy, people that, women who have started to not fast because there's this perceived difference. Is there a difference, and what are your takes? What's your take on that?
There is a difference, but that difference doesn't mean that women can't fast.
Okay.
It's one of these super general. So although I have lots of men as clients, the majority of my clients are women.
Mm-hmm.
And I just talked about Bridget, who's a lady, a massage therapist. She is probably in her early 50s. who fasts for prolonged periods. The majority of my clients, if anything, are postmenopausal women.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the thing: women and men have to be in a very good okay, you want to make sure that their thyroid levels, if any, there's a whole bunch of things, but the thyroid has to be controlled through medication. Okay, if it's abnormal levels, and if it's not controlled, fasting is a very difficult challenge. And so, of course, we know that this is something that's very common in certain people. And so that's one reason why maybe some women feel like they're having a hard time fasting
Mm-hmm.
because they're not they haven't been successful controlling their thyroid. Okay, so I do see that all the time, and that's something that we address all the time. That's one thing. The other thing is cortisol. Okay, unfortunately, in this world, a lot of people have cortisol issues, stress, lack of sleep. If your cortisol is high, your insulin is high, fasting is going to be that much more difficult. So we have to address that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't think that's a man woman thing. I just think that maybe women uh, are going through these things a bit more it's more obvious.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that is for sure different in men and women is how exercise is impacted by fasting. So when to eat after exercise, that seems to be different. So we address that individually as well. None of what I've told you uh, has made me ever think that women can't fast. I'm a woman. I fast. As I said, most of my clients are women, and most of our coaches are still women. We have a couple of guys too,
Uh-huh.
but so I don't think that at all. I do think that each individual should take this individually.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be something that works properly for you. If you don't feel like the extended fasts work for you, then work on a schedule that does work for you and
Mm-hmm.
keep it as consistent as you can so that you have good results long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's good stuff. Gosh, this whole fasting thing is such an interesting such an interesting way of looking at health and eating and consuming food, because when I first got into all of this, I thought, oh man, I could just, as long as I eat healthy food, that's all that really matters, and not realizing that fasting is such a huge part of your overall health. If people want to connect with you, Doc, is the best website drnadia.com? Is that where people should go first?
If they want to connect with me to have a consult, the best place to go is the IDM program website. Because as I said, I do work exclusively for IDM. I haven't seen people on my own for a long time.
Okay.
And so, but if they want to get more information about my journey or sort of what I'm up to, they can check out my website. I'm probably not as active on it as I could be, but I'm super busy with IDM. I'm super focused with IDM. There's so much stuff going on. Megan and Dr. Fung are doing amazing things. So I want to be as close to that as possible.
That's cool. I'm going to bring up their website, IDM. And so when I see up at top, it's interesting. It says join our free community and join our programs. So are the programs available for everybody, or is it a limited enrollment? What's it look like if someone's listening to this and they're like, I want to get on a sort of program of fasting? What does that look like for
Yeah,
them?
there's super good information on there. So we basically have a coaching program and a membership program. So it's not limited. Our coaching program has obviously grown quite a bit, and so we have more coaches. We currently have 5 active coaches. So um, anybody can join, and there's different options. Okay, if you want to be part of the membership program, what that means is that you're part of a community of people that's doing this on their own. There's resources available for those people. There's getting started videos, Q&A videos, science videos. There's a whole bunch of information. There's a large forum where people can communicate with each other. There are moderators in that forum that help lead group fasts, weekly group fasts. So there's a lot of people who very successfully do this on their own, even though it's with the community support. But then we've got our fasting coaches, and we each have our groups that we lead and that calls with people. So they're individual calls, but within a group context.
That is so cool. That is so cool. I'm just looking in here. It looks like, yeah, there's some um, blood work that you could submit. Is that blood work that you would get done and then submit it to you guys as the coaches, and you guys would kind of cover that with people, or how does that work?
So our program is a dietary program. It's not a medical program. So there's quite a bit of information there for your medical doctor if your medical doctor wants to be involved in this. And your doctor should always be informed. If you're on medication, if you're it's necessary that your doctor be aware of what's going on. The suggested, not required blood tests mean just that. If your doctor wants some information, and if you want to speak with your doctor about what tests to look at from time to time to check how you're progressing, then those are the ones that we recommend. I talk to people about fasting and about diet. If people share their lab work with me, I'm very curious and interested, and I might go over it with them from an information perspective, but I never give medical advice, never,
Yeah.
about diagnoses, medication. I am not equipped for that, and that's not what my role is with IDM.
Yeah, yeah, I want to stay away from the old diagnosis. Stay far, far
Mhm.
away from that, right? Oh
Yeah.
man, yeah. Well, thanks so much, Nadia, for being on and sharing all this cool information about fasting. I really appreciate it, and the fact that it's what time is it over there in Portugal right now?
It's 8:05. Did you hear my kids crying?
A little bit, yeah,
Did you
a
hear?
little bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
So mommy puts them to bed at 8. So
Okay,
that
okay.
it's like timely. They're like, it's 8 and she's not here.
I know.
This is a problem.
Well, thank you so
I
much,
apologize.
Nadia. Yeah, no, no worries, no worries. That was great. So we'll put links to all the different websites we talked about on today's show, and I'll send you a link as soon as it's available as well.
Thank you. It was
Awesome.
my pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you, Nadia. I will talk to you very soon. Okay.
Bye, Dustin. Thank
Bye
you.
bye. All right, my friends. There you go. Episode 611. What did you guys think about that? That was pretty cool. Nadia Pateguana, all about fasting, intermittent fasting. What do you guys think? Do you guys fast? Do you want to fast? Do you think it's just starvation? Do you think that it is beneficial? It's interesting because there's such programs about fasting, and a friend of mine went on a program for fasting. She went to a place called True North, and her body is dealing with, or her body is, I should say it like this: her body is in the process of healing from rheumatoid arthritis. How about that? There you go. That's much better than saying she has rheumatoid arthritis, right? Or what's even worse is sometimes people say, I have RA, and then you kind of give it a little nickname. Just be careful with the way you word things with these types of diagnoses and things like that, because once you sort of crystallize a theory or an idea, it becomes yours. Once you sort of turn a verb into a noun, and then you put a label on it, and then you sort of look at it like it's your own. So yeah, her body is in the process of overcoming rheumatoid arthritis, and she went through a place called True North. I think she did like a 14-day water fast, and this was like when she first got into natural health and stuff like that. So, man, to go from a standard American diet to an intense water fast like that, I don't know if I could do that. Well, I probably could. I mean, we can do everything. We can do anything. We're much stronger, more resilient than we think we are. So, it's important to realize that. But, man, what a crazy thing. So, intermittent fasting, that's what I do. I watched a video documentary about it, and there's so many studies showing the tremendous benefits of intermittent fasting. But sometimes, here's what's really cool about, talking to someone like her. Sometimes you just get a little bit of insight. You get a little bit of wisdom. You get a little bit of something that allows you to think and tweak your program a little bit, right? So it's like reading a book. Sometimes, let me take these out real quick. Sometimes all you need is just one thing that is going to be sort of turn your life around from a book, right? So in this particular show, what I got from it was the idea of figuring out, like, what do you mean by breaking a fast? Because it all this is determined on what you're trying to achieve as your objective with the fast, right? So if your objective is to lose weight, or if your objective is to overcome a process where you have too many cells in your body that are concentrated, or if your objective is to increase your energy, increase your sleep, improve your hormones, all of those are specific objectives that one would want to put into practice, put a fast into practice, right? So, or weight loss. So all of these things have different answers based on what you're trying to achieve. So the other thing I took away from this is the idea of doing like a fast within your feeding window. Now that's interesting to me. It's interesting, but it doesn't sound very appealing. Because for me, it's like, you ever listen to Dr. Jack Kruse, and he's really not concerned with what people eat. He's like, I don't care about people's diet. All I care about is their light environment. And there's so much truth to that. And it's also important to eat the right foods, right? I don't care what Dr. Jack Kruse says. If you're eating crappy food, you're not gonna. Let's say at the very least, if you're eating a crappy food diet, you won't get as many of the benefits that you can from what he talks about with regards to light, right? So I think you have to do all of it. So what's intriguing and not very appealing is this idea of eating two big meals during your eating window. And I don't know if that sounds that sounds like you're doing a fast within a fast. That sounds even harder. But, we're in this for the long haul, right? So we really want to get dialed into what's going to keep us here a long time and help us achieve our goals and give us the energy we want. Because, there's nothing worse than seeing someone who's 75, 80 years old lose their health and then spend all their money at the end of their life to try to get up to baseline, just to be able to not be in pain, right? So that's really the one of the motivations. I think it's really important to have multiple motivations for why we do things, because for example, you should have more than one motivation to do intermittent fasting. For me, I have more than one motivation. Like, for example, when I go work out, like after this, I'm going to go do a workout. And, sometimes my motivation is typically during a workout, I will listen to podcasts, speeches, things on YouTube. I'll listen to audiobooks. I'll listen to inspiring information. And sometimes I know that there's something really cool that I want to listen to that I didn't get the chance to listen to, the day before. So I'm looking forward to that. So when some part of your motivation dips, if you have 5 or 6 motivating factors, it might only be one of those factors that actually gets you to do something. Right? So that's why it's important to not just have one thing that motivates you. Like, if you want to work out so that you can fit into a pair of skinny jeans, and, if you fit into those jeans, then now you've reached your goal. So now you have to have something beyond that. And so having 5 or 6 different things, or as many things as you possibly can, be a motivating factor for you to do something, that's going to allow you to pick and choose from different motivating factors during times when you're just not motivated. Like you want to mentally work out, or you might want to mentally do fasting, but the idea of doing it just sounds horrible to you. So if you have a few different things that motivate you, like sometimes for me, it's just getting out in the sun. Like I want to go out and work out because I want to get that sunlight on my body. I don't feel like working out, but working out almost becomes an excuse to get the sunlight instead of the other way around. The sunlight, the excuse to work out. So that's why I think it's really important for me, at least, to have multiple reasons why I do any kind of thing in my life, whether it's fasting or whether it's, if I was writing a book, I would want to have different reasons for that. So I can pull from those during times when I don't have any motivation. Zeno Chaos XC, I like that name. Thanks for joining us today. I used to fast somewhat regularly, but my current lifestyle requires more routine energy. Costs me more in enzymes and money. Okay. So you don't fast now is what you're saying. Well, I guess you do fast if you don't eat for 8 hours during the time that you sleep. What kind of electrolytes do you use? Well, Lesek says in the chat, obviously bone broth is going to be good. I like electrolytes like in the form of salts, magnesium salts, tri-salts are good. So those are some good electrolytes. Mineral supplements, obviously, I think those would be really, really good. Let's see. ZZ Captain says they had to go. Yeah. So what do you guys think? You guys like that show with Nadia Pateguana? Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Reba says, what's a proper meal, though? That all depends on so many different factors, like what you're going for. Are you going for longevity? Are you going for energy production? Are you going for weight loss? You're going for muscle production? You're going for a change in hormones? So it all depends on what your goals are. Sherry says obesity already is degenerating and morphing the body. Yeah, that's true. Man, the amount of people that are obese in today's culture is just, it's almost shocking, isn't it? Almost shocking. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Before I go, I wanted to tell you guys about this Magnetico mattress pad. Our kids, this is crazy. And I don't know if it's the Magnetico or the Rest Shield or the different light. We do a lot of different things with them with regards to light, but they're sleeping like, I think, around 12 hours a night, which is crazy for 2 months old, right? So the Magnetico mattress pad, this is something that I'm a big fan of. And we had Dr. Dean Bonley on the show. And if you've been to our store, you see that we have separate sections for light, water, and magnetism, because ultimately that's really what health is all about: light, water, and magnetism, right? Food is like way down the list, in my opinion, in terms of what actually determines our level of health, our energy, our hormone production, our ability to have goals and meet those goals and to live a long, happy, disease-free life. I think food is way down on the list. It's all about light, water, and magnetism. And that's why it's super important to bring more of the proper kind of light into your lifestyle, as well as mitigating the effects of damaging light. So light must be managed in the same way that you manage your diet, because ultimately food is inextricably linked to photosynthesis, right? All food comes from the photosynthetic web of life and nature. And so when we're eating food, it's basically just a repository for photons, biophotons from the sun. So when we're eating food, we're eating light. And so the same goes with magnetism. Like the amount of magnetism that the Earth has now has diminished significantly over the last thousands of years. It's said that in the Babylonian Empire, the magnetic field of the Earth was 3 to 5 Gauss. Now it's less than half a Gauss at 0.5. And some people conjecture that when there was dinosaurs and giants that roamed the Earth was around 300 Gauss, and that was one of the reasons why creatures were so huge back then. The same goes true with oxygen. It's lower all the time. It's supposed to be around 30%, but now it's in the low teens. If you go to cities, the oxygen level saturation in the air is way less. The air pressure is lower as well. And so the magnetic field of the Earth has weakened about 80%, they say, over the last 4,000 years. And we are beings of magnetism. We're beings of electricity. We're beings of voltage. We're beings of light. And it's really important for us to bring more of this into our lifestyle and to bring more magnetism. There's a picture of Kate sitting on our Magnetico mattress pad. And we don't even have the super sleep system. This is something that we're going to upgrade to pretty soon. But what a difference. This is huge. Bathing your body in a field of magnetic energy is one of the best ways to mitigate the damaging effects of Wi-Fi. Some people call it Wi-Fi, radiation, 5G, all of that stuff. So bringing more magnetism into your life. And it's important also to note that when you bring more magnetism into your life, you want to make sure that you are exposed to that magnetism during the nighttime, because that's when the Earth is actually creating more of a magnetic flux in the evening. And so there's so much that goes into magnetism and bringing that into your life. And that's why we sleep on the Magnetico mattress sleep pad. I'm telling you guys, it will change your life. These things have over 2,000 different magnets in each pad. And they're all properly aligned, because if they're not aligned properly, like you could make your own, but if you do plus minus polarities and, you do that switching over time, it'll deplete your body. But Dr. Dean Bonley has put together this amazing mattress pad that is incredible. And I highly recommend looking into the Magnetico. And what's cool is that Joan has allowed us to give you guys a 10% discount. So if you guys want to check it out, you can get 10% off your order by going to EHR10 when you go over to Magnetico and check that out. So make sure to do that. And finally, I can't tell you enough how much I love our Bellicon Rebounder. I do it every single day. And what I do is I do it out in the sun. You guys know me. I try to stack as many practices as I possibly can together. And so what I do is I typically will go do my workout outside in the backyard in the sun, full spectrum sun, grounded, drinking water, doing it hopefully in a fasted state, and getting all of those incredible benefits from working out and utilizing your muscles and, tearing the muscles down during a hard, heavy workout outside in the sun. And then afterwards, what I do is I just flush all of that lymphatic fluid. There's something it feels so good to jump up and down after you've lifted heavy weight. I don't know what it is. I suspect your all of those millions of one-way valves of your lymphatic fluid, flushing in your body and reducing the amount of acids in your body and lactic acid. And, that's why it's really important to make sure you don't exercise too much. That's why, people that have an excess amount of cells in their body that are going a bit haywire, they don't want them exercising too much because it creates too much lactic acid, and there's a connection between that. So we want to flush that out. So one of the things that I like to do is to jump on the rebounder, and what I do is I use my grounding cord and I ground directly to the earth while I'm rebounding, and then I'll listen to an inspiring podcast. I'll smile. I'll get the sunlight on my teeth. I'll get the sunlight in my eyes, and it's just an awesome experience. And the Bellicon's great because it's the best rebounder on the market. There's no other rebounder that comes even close, in my opinion. I just love this thing. I've had mine for about 5 years. I actually had 3 or 4 of the cheap rebounders that I got from like Walmart or whatever. And during that time, I had a torn ACL, and I couldn't rebound anymore because the amount of impact on my joints was so much that I would have to stop walking even because the pain in my knee was so much. But as soon as I got the Bellicon, this thing is like, I'll show a picture of it, Kate jumping up and down on it. But as soon as I got the Bellicon, it's like it jumps for you. It's like jumping on air. That was the first thing I noticed. So it's actually kind of cool. I would actually encourage you to get a cheapo rebounder, use that for a little while, and then get the Bellicon. And man, you talk about like the Rolls Royce of rebounder. Here's a picture of me and Maggie Brown, a little Maggie Brown. Yeah, these things are just incredible. What I like about them too is that they're silent. They use these flexi ropes, so they don't use springs. And I'm telling you guys, like for bone density issues, for cleaning your lymphatic system, increasing circulation, increasing blood flow, oxygen levels in the body, tightening and toning your muscles, you can get a cardiovascular workout. I simply just jump up and down because I do it for cleansing purposes. So then what I'll do is I'll get all of that lymphatic system, that fluid in my body that is a repository for toxins and chemicals. I'll get that flushed out of my muscles and out of my lymphatic drainage areas of my body. And then what I'll do is I'll go in I'll go in the sauna. And man, talk about a great lymphatic system sort of treatment that you can do. So if you guys want to check out let's see, what was it? It was the Symbiotica, the Molecular Hydrogen, the Magnetico mattress pad, or the Bellicon rebounders. Just check out our store. We got all the stuff in there, adding new products there all the time, and want to check in with you guys and see what else is going on. Let's see, any other questions? If you guys have any questions for me, let me know and I can answer any of those questions. Let me give you a quick update on our shows coming up, and then I'm going to sign off and go do my workout. And if you follow us on Instagram, you'll probably see pictures of that. Let me just make sure I bring up our upcoming shows here. On Wednesday, we got Dr. Darren Engels. So if you know anybody that has Lyme disease, make sure to have them listen to that show. Tune in live, 10:45 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Pacific time. Go to extremehealthradio.com and you can check that out. And then Dr. William Pollack on PEMF therapy. I just did PEMF before I came over here to the studio. I did my IMRS 2000 for 10 minutes. And my Juvelite as well. So then it's all good stuff, right? You got to take care of yourself, right? I mean, you can't just live in this culture and this society and expect not to get sick. I mean, this current level of toxins and chemicals that are in our society right now are so high that, man, if you're not doing these sort of health and healing practices, like, I mean, it's almost like gambling, playing Russian roulette with your health, right? Let's see. Daryl says, what's good for muscle loss? Ooh, muscle loss. I mean, the first thing everyone's going to say is protein, obviously. But you got to figure out what's going on in your body that's causing that. Has it been going on for a long time, I wonder? Um, I think I heard enzymes are even good to supplement during fasting. Yeah, you know what? I should have asked her about that. That was a good that's a good question. I take this morning I took a little bit of actually no, yesterday morning I took a little bit of that Bob Greska's C60. We did a whole show about the life enhancing properties of C60. Its ability to pull out negatively charged positively charged toxins and chemicals. I took some of that when I had a couple drops of that, and then I took the Jing Slinger's mitochondrial detox. That was like another little dropper that I took during my fasting. But typically, I don't take anything during my fasting window anymore. So, enzymes, yeah. So if you're looking to like clean up, increase autophagy, I would imagine that enzymes during a fasted state would be incredibly helpful, especially something like a nattokinase, maybe something like that, where you're going through and it's not sort of a digestive enzyme, but it's more of a metabolic enzyme that helps you break down and increase autophagy. I would think that would be good. Sometimes I take nattokinase during a fast as well. Yeah, fasting. There's a lot of different tools and ways that you can actually utilize it for your health and for your overall well-being. So, I think that the key is really just finding something that works for you, right? For me, doing the intermittent fasting from 6 p.m. to about 12 p.m. the next day, that leaves me about a 6-hour eating window. That works well for me. I can do that no problem. Like right now, it's 12:30 Pacific time, and I'm not even hungry. I'll go home. Maybe I'll work out in the fastest state. Maybe I won't. But it doesn't bother me at all to not eat. So I've sort of trained my body to do this over time too. So I'll probably start doing maybe a once a week fast as well. If you consider the fact, if you were to add up three meals a day, if you ate 3 meals a day and you fasted 1 day a week, that's 52 times 3. That's 150 roughly meals that you're not eating in a year. Over the course of a decade, man, that's a lot of food that you're not putting through your system. And the age-old, saying is true: the less you eat, the longer you live. And like those studies I was sharing about mice and longevity and increased lifespan as a result of calorie restriction and even intermittent fasting with these mice. So, we were never really meant to go long periods of time where all we do is eat. We weren't meant to do that. This way that we live in our culture today is so bizarre, and it's so everything about it is opposite and wrong, whether it's what you're learning or what you're doing or where you're living or the stress levels people are under. It's really a bizarre thing to me to see how unnatural our life is. And so for us to start bringing in some of these ancient practices, you look at any religious icon and figurehead, they've all fasted. Every one of them fasted. And fasting is a way of spiritual enlightenment for sure. So there's even, emotional, spiritual reasons why you'd want to fast, so it's not just physical, it's attuning you more into a deeper level of conviction and a deeper level of connection to who you really are. This is what all this stuff is about, it's same thing with urine therapy. We did a whole show about drinking your own urine. It sounds crazy, right? Drinking your own urine, but this stuff has been practiced for centuries. It's for centuries and centuries, and so it's important to get back to that. I think to really look at how we're living our life and say, like, is this natural? We do so many things that aren't natural, right? And the more unnatural things that we do, the more we embrace this sort of plastic, fake reality that we live in, the more we embrace that, the sicker we're going to become. There's just no way around it. You cannot live in this sick society and expect to be healthy. You can't. You're bombarded just by existing, just by simply merely sitting in a room. You're exposed to so many chemicals and EMF and all this stuff. So that's why it's really important to pick some things to really start honing in on with your health, right? Start honing in on some of these things. Like start looking at intermittent fasting and see, hey, maybe this could work for me, and start really exploring these things, or start looking at maybe using herbs, or maybe using mushrooms, or maybe using essential oils, and start looking at some of these things, or gardening, or juicing, or making tinctures, or all these types of things. There's so many tools that we have at our disposal these days that I think could be incredibly beneficial for our health. Spirulina, amongst other supplements, is also good while fasting. Oh, hey, Maria. Yeah. That's awesome. Spirulina. It all depends. If spirulina, like she said, anytime you consume anything, you're going to have an insulin response. So it depends what you're trying to do. If you are trying to lose weight, then spirulina probably wouldn't be a good idea to take during fast. What's her name? Dr. Rhonda Patrick calls those, xenobiotics, and they have an effect on your blood sugar levels. And as a result, stop autophagy and stop cellular breakdown and stuff like that. So, it's best to just, like, for me with intermittent fasting, here's the way I look at intermittent fasting. It's doable. It's completely doable with my body type and with my schedule, right? So I'm not someone who's a very good faster. I have a hard time fasting for a day or two, but I realized I can do intermittent fasting. And so I figure if I'm going to do intermittent fasting, I might as well do it right? Because if I can already do it, if I know that it's not that difficult for me, it's not that much of a challenge for me to just go all the way with it, right? Just do strictly water. And like I said to Dr. Nadia, all I do is I put a pinch of sea salt in my water, and that's all I have during my time when I'm not eating. If I were to do like a longer fast, like a 1, 2, 3 day fast, and for me that's long because I haven't trained my body to do this yet. If I were to do that, I like to ease into things. I don't like to jump into things, and it really creates chaos in my body. I like to sort of ease very slowly because I figure if I slowly ease into something, it sort of becomes a part of my matrix. It becomes a part of my routine, becomes a part of my daily life, becomes a part of who I am. And then I sort of bring that in as something that I can do and something that I am rather than something that I'm doing. And so when I do something like a longer fast, I would ease into it. And so that's when I would be like more okay with giving myself the option of having maybe a green juice. Maybe, for me, like I could do fasting where it's like I could do a green juice, I could do a bone broth, and am I technically breaking the fast? Yes. Am I technically stopping autophagy? Of course. Am I technically raising insulin levels because I'm bringing these xenobiotics into my body? Of course. At some point, it's not really about what your goals are, but it's about creating the habit. So it's like when I go if I go traveling somewhere, like we have family in Australia, I'll go traveling and I'll come back and it'll be, a 14-hour plane ride from Sydney back to LA. When I was going to a gym and I didn't have my home workout gym that I have now, I would simply go to the gym that same day I got back. Sometimes I just go in there and I wouldn't even talk, I wouldn't even work out. I would just talk to people. I just hang out with people for a few minutes because I used to live a couple doors down from the gym. So I would just go there and not even work out. Or I would just go on a treadmill just for 10 minutes and just get that sort of habit going again. Because once you come back from, a 3-week trip to Australia, not having worked out for a long time, it's super easy to get out of that habit loop, right? That loop of doing the things that you're supposed to do to take care of yourself. It's super easy to get out of that, right? So simply just get doing it, and not focusing on like what your goal is. Maybe if it takes you a while to get used to something, maybe it might take you, a month to get into something, right? If that's the case, then just allow yourself, like maybe do a liquid fast and just allow yourself any kind of liquid you want, because it's not really about the goal. You can get to the goal maybe a month afterwards, but just ease into these things. That's what I like to do. That way it's kind, it's gentle, it's soft, it's allowing your body to adapt and to respond. And that way it's easier because you're not crashing up, crashing down, crashing up. You're not going up and down, and then you beat yourself up. It's just a slow easing process, right? And so that's why I like doing things slowly, because I'm looking for the long term. If I want to introduce fasting into my life, I want to be doing it 40, 50, 60 years from now and still be doing it. I don't want to have tried it for 3 weeks, loved it, couldn't stick with it, get off of it, and then have this idea that I want to keep trying it, but I can't stick with it. And then it becomes a weird negative feedback loop in your head. And then you're just like, I can't do it. You want to just, for me, it's just better to ease into things. That's just me, ease into things, feel good about it, create success, get your body used to it. If you figure if you're 30, 40 years old, you've had 30 or 40 years of damaging your body. Why do you have to ease into doing intermittent fasting, in a 2-week period? Just be kind to yourself, gently move in. That's my approach. Some people, they can jump right in, go 100%, and enjoy that process, and stick to it forever. I don't work like that. Do you guys work like that? What do you guys like to do? Do you guys like to ease into things, or do you guys like to sort of jump in full bore and then, and then try to stick with it? It's challenging, right? Xeno Chaos says, I love that name. When I do fast, I will still take some Camo or B complex for energy and free radical mitigation. Yeah, see, this is the thing with fasting, right? I mean, you get these really people like the almond raw. I don't know if you caught the thing, earlier I showed this guy almond raw, and you get idealistic people out there that are doing it for very idealistic purpose and reason. Technically Xeno Chaos would, taking Camo berry and B complex, break your fast. Yeah, for sure it would. But who am I to tell you what's good for you and your body, right? If that's what you feel like you need. And think about this too, like people in the alternative health and natural health community will say, oh, you shouldn't take Camo and B complex. It's going to break your fast and blah, blah, blah. But think about what the average person is doing. They're eating fast food. They're eating hamburgers. They're eating pizza. They're eating cheese from factory farm cows that are sick. They're pumped full of hormones, the dairy, and they're eating junk food and sugar and all this stuff, right? And here you are doing a fast on Camo berry and B complex. I mean, how amazing is that, right? I mean, how amazing is that? I think sometimes in the alternative natural health community, we get so stuck on like the plateau and what idealistically we should be doing and what's best for the human body. When in actuality, I mean, if I were to be really dogmatic and judgmental, I would say, yeah, you shouldn't do Camo berry during a fast, But when I compare what you're doing with what the average person is doing out there, it's insane. It's crazy. It's crazy good. So, and then if you feel led to do more things, here's the thing that I think is really important for all of us, right? For me, I feel led to fasting. I feel led to mitigating light. I don't know, this last probably 5 years since we originally had Dr. Jack Cruz on, I feel like this light component of mitigation in my life has been the biggest thing that the biggest health breakthrough I've had is mitigating the damaging effects of light and how to use light to your benefit, not just mitigating it, but using light to your benefit. So that's for me been really a big part of my health journey the last 5 years since we first had Dr. Jack Cruz on, and I learned all about this stuff, right? But what's interesting is like, why is it that we get tuned into certain things? Like, why am I interested in fasting? Why are you interested in fasting? If you're listening or watching this right now, this is a whole podcast we're doing about not eating food. I mean, what's the number one thing that people want to do in our culture? And what's the number one thing most everyone is addicted to? Food. So why are you watching a video all about not eating food? So I believe that there are invisible processes that are happening within our bodies that if we can attune to them, it starts to make us open to the very things that we need that will heal us. So I was listening to someone recently talk about in our life, we have 7 to 8 major instances with cancer. Or I'm sorry, I shouldn't even say that word. I don't like even using that word. With abnormal cells that are growing at a rate that we don't like, right? So we have this major instances of these abnormal cells that are proliferating, right? And if we just live a life where we're disconnected from our our health and what we really want, we'll never know that's going on, right? But if you follow your gut and you follow your intuition, I believe that we're led to the very thing that's going to heal us in the form of just being interested in things, right? That's what I think. So maybe if you're watching this right now and you're interested in fasting, or you're interested in extreme health, you're interested in optimizing your digestion and sleep and all this stuff, maybe your body subconsciously knows that there's some process that's happening. I don't mean abnormal cells. It could be anything, right? It could be like insulin levels that are getting a little bit too high, or inflammation that's happening that you don't want. It doesn't have to be a major disease process. But what I'm saying is that these things are happening within our body all the time, and I think it's really important for us to follow our gut and our intuition and say, like, why am I just extremely excited about learning about herbs and mushrooms right now? Well, if we're really in tune, maybe it's our subconscious mind, it's our soul inside of our body that's saying, hey, your body's a little bit sick right now, and this is what it needs. So I'm going to give you some level of interest in this so that you'll pursue it, so that we can give that to the body as an offer instead of giving medications and drugs as an offer. And your body will willingly accept a natural offer like that. So it's all about offering the body what it needs to thrive. And I feel like our intuition and our interests, our desires are always for better health, even though we don't know it. And maybe there's some process going on in our body that we need to focus on, and we don't even know it's happening, but for some reason you're very interested in fasting, for example. So, and it's the fasting that will heal that. And maybe you do the fast, you enjoy it, and it works well for you. And you don't even know that you healed some catastrophic health condition that you didn't even know you had. And I believe when we stay connected to who we really are, and when we are in tune with that, I believe that that's really what happens, is that we're always looking to balance ourselves, and we're always looking to heal ourselves. So if you're interested in some aspect of health and you don't know why, but you're just super interested, just go with it. Completely go with it. And maybe that is God's way, your body's way of communicating to you that, hey, this is the medicine you need right now. Maybe the medicine you need is fasting. It's been said that we actually have vitamin and mineral deficiencies, not because of the food we're not eating, not because we're not eating certain foods that have those things in them, but we have those deficiencies in our body because of the certain foods we are eating. So when we're eating poor food, not just is it bad for you, but it's actually stripping things out of your body. And so when you can eat the things that are only going to put good things in your body and then fast, man, talk about a really great and amazing combo. Maria says, great to have you here, Maria. This is awesome. I fast with a pinch of Himalayan salt and lots of water, intermittent at least 5 days. Cool. So 5 days you do intermittent fasting, and then 2 days you don't do it. Is that what I heard? Yeah, for me, I like to do 7 days, just 7 days of intermittent fasting. Some days I get lazy though. Some days I'll just go and I'll break my fast early, and But that's what's kind of cool is that like health and this kind of stuff is it's an opportunity for growth, because there's lots of things that could happen, right? Just the other day I broke my fast. I stopped it at 16 hours instead of my normal 18 hours of fasting, and my first thought was like, oh, like I beat myself up for that, right? Like, I kind of gave in to my hunger pains, right? But that's why, natural health and alternative healing is all about personal development and spiritual growth, because it gives us that option. It gives us that opportunity to grow in that way and to say, you know what, I fasted for 16 hours. That's way more than most people did. Just because I didn't go my normal 18 doesn't mean I'm a bad person or I'm a failure. So it's really a self-love exercise as well. And so all of this stuff is inextricably linked to each other and tied to each other. And so, fasting is a way of personal growth. If you really think about it, it's how am I going to grow? You want to learn about who you really are, just deprive yourself of some food and try to sit in a 10-minute meditation. I mean, you'll learn real quick who you are. And, there's a guy by the name of Steve Pavlina, And he recently, like a year ago, did a 30-day water fast. And he's a personal development. He has a personal development blog that I read from time to time. And he documented his 30-day fast with a YouTube video every single day with different insights on things and stuff. He's a really interesting guy, stevepavlina.com. But, it's all of this stuff, one of the best ways to get into personal growth and personal development is through food. Because food is a discipline that you have to, adhere to 3 times a day or more. And so it's a daily thing. So if you really want to create daily practices and improve your life through personal growth and spiritual development, then that's probably why I got connected to food, and why food is a daily discipline. It can teach you a lot. It can teach you a lot about who you really are and what your goals are and what your weaknesses are as well. ZZ Captain says, my keto coffee consists of heavy whipping cream. Oh my gosh, that sounds so good. Heavy whipping cream, grass-fed butter, cinnamon, and light-colored coffee, Juan Valdez, since it may not have as much tannins and stevia. Whoa, that sounds so good. ZZ Captain, one of the things I've been doing too, it's funny because this sort of drink, I've gotten away from making smoothies. I've gotten more into making herbal elixirs and combining them with coffee. So what I like to do is, hey, Kate, awesome, you're here. I'm about ready to wrap up, so I'm going to be home any minute now. But I was just going to tell people about the keto coffee kind of thing that I do. I was just telling my parents about this too the other day. But what I like to do is make, I'll go to Mountain Rose Herbs and I'll buy a bunch of different herbs like medicinal mushrooms like astragalus, reishi, chaga, lion's mane. And I'll buy, 4 or 5 different types of herbs. And then I'll make a huge big batch of each of those single herbs. And it'll be like a huge black glass pot full. And I'll make a batch of reishi, a batch of chaga, a batch of lion's mane, a batch of astragalus, and a batch of Romania root. And then I'll have all of those, and then I'll combine all of those together. If you guys follow our Instagram, in fact, I'll put a picture of it. I'll combine them all together. It's pretty funny. If you guys want to see it, I put a batch, all of this stuff together. It's a big brew. I'll bring that up on the screen if you guys want to see it. I just did this a couple of weeks ago, but it's like almost a 5-gallon container of basically plant or medicinal mushroom medicine, and that's what I'll do. So I'll make a ton of this stuff, and then what I'll do is I'll mix it all together, and then I'll freeze it into little ice cubes, and then I'll put those ice cubes into the freezer, and then what I'll do is pop a couple of those out. In fact, I forgot to do that. Hey, Kate, if you're watching, can you pop a couple of those ice cubes out? They're in the garage, actually. I love that I'm asking my wife, Kate, if she can get 4 of the cubes out of the garage in the freezer over YouTube Live. That's so funny. But yeah, Kate, if you're able to do that, because I need to, this is so funny. I don't have a cell phone, so I can't call her. But anyway, I'll take 4 of these cubes, and then I'll defrost them overnight. I almost said de-thaw, like Kate says, de-thaw. That's a double negative there. But I'll defrost them, and then I'll take that and I'll make coffee with it. And then I'll add a bunch of superfoods to it. I'll add a bunch of powders to it, a bunch of fats to it, and it just creates this incredible 4, Kate, 4 of the ice cubes. 4 of the ice cubes if you can. They're in the bag in the garage. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I need to defrost those so I can make that tonight. But what I'll do is I'll add, I'll make coffee basically with medicinal mushroom tea. And then there's a medicinal mushroom tea combined with a coffee. And then I'll add if I have duck fat, if I have beef tallow, if I have coconut oil, coconut butter, ghee, I'll add a bunch of different healthy fats to it. And then I'll add a bunch of different medicinal mushroom powders as well, along with chocolate powder, stuff like that. And it creates like this incredibly rich drink that tastes so good. And I'll usually sweeten it with just stevia. So I'm getting a lot of healthy fats, getting medicinal mushrooms, getting the benefits of coffee, getting some beef gelatin in there as well for collagen. So a lot of really cool stuff with that. So you guys are really talking a lot. You're an animal. I've been drinking fully nutrient-loaded coffee for the past 8 years. Highly recommend it. You're an animal. I love that. What kind of coffee do you drink? Curious. Do you guys buy into the bulletproof thing with the low mold? You guys buy into that, the bulletproof coffee with allegedly no mold on it. A lot of people are selling coffee these days. Apparently, there's a lot of coffee now. The decaf coffees have, if they're not organic, usually the way they make those are they use a formaldehyde sort of base to extract the caffeinated compounds from the coffee beans in order to make decaffeinated coffee, which is a little bit nuts to me. So the way I look at it is, if caffeine is in the bean, then the most natural way to take your coffee is with caffeine in it. I've been doing decaf the last few years, but I think I'm going to switch over to regular caffeination because I don't know. I don't trust how they're doing it. Even if it's organic, decaffeinated. Yes, this is very solid info. Super coffee is the best. Super coffee. I feel like I've heard that. I use the mushrooms, meal replacements, MCT, ghee. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's awesome. Super coffee. Is that? I feel like I've heard about that. I feel like I've seen it. Maybe it's supercoffee.com. I feel like recently I was on their website looking at something. You're an animal. Yeah, the collagen too, the most excellent. Fresh roasted. If I can't get to it, I'll stick with maybe Pete's coffee or anything else I can find that smells potent. Yeah, man. I've been doing coffee a lot, and I don't know. My body seems to really like it. You know what? For the longest time, I don't really drink anything like alcohol. Never been a big drinker. Never really appealed to me. I used to drink Long Island iced teas, though. Those were pretty good. Shoot, they would taste good now. But I'm not a big drinker. Every now and then I'll have some wine with Kate for dinner. And not a big coffee guy. Never was into coffee until the last couple of years. When I started realizing that you can use coffee as a vehicle to get medicine in, then I started really thinking, wow, I could make this taste good. I can, put some chocolate in that thing and really get a lot of medicinal mushroom medicine that you can't really get with, like, if you were to do a green juice or green smoothie. It's difficult to put mushrooms in that. So you kind of need like a different flavor. And so when I started realizing that coffee could be really beneficial in that way to get as a vehicle to get other medicines in, typically that's what cacao is always a delivery vehicle for medicine. They used the chocolate to get the medicine. The thing they really wanted was the medicine, but the medicine was so bitter that they had to have a carrier for that, and chocolate was always that carrier. Same with the coffee as well. And so when I started using coffee more regularly, I found a great way to get these other sort of medicines into my body, like the gelatin, like the healthy fats, like the medicinal mushrooms, and the coffee itself is incredibly beneficial for you. So typically only do about a cup or two a day, and that's pretty much what I do. Call the coffee whatever you want. We all have a vaguer idea of what it all means. I'm not sure what you mean by that. You're an animal. I like your name though. You're an animal. It's hilarious. Maria says my father always put butter in his coffee or his breakfast coffee milk. No way. Even before Dave Asprey made it popular, your dad was doing that? That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. All right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up. That was a cool show. Hope you guys enjoyed that show. A lot of people are saying hello over on Facebook as well. I did want to let you guys know, if you want to get access to any of those products that we talked about, what I'll do is I'll put the Magnetico. I think I put them up on I'll put the Magnetico there as well. If you guys want to check out the different products that we talked about on today's show. What we do too is sort of as a benefit, our store is like an affiliate sort of store. And so we don't sell, take payments for any of the products we have in our store. So what we do is link off to the companies that do sell them. And so if you want to send me a receipt, we'll give you a 30-day trial to the Extreme Health Academy if you buy through our store. I think pretty soon we're going to limit that to like some of the higher end products in our store. But right now, if you purchase any of the products in our store, email me with your receipt of that product, and I'll verify the commission on our end, and then I'll give you a coupon code for a 30-day access to our Extreme Health Academy if you guys want to check that out. Let me put a link to the Academy as well, because you guys should definitely check that out. For those that haven't checked it out, I would highly recommend that you look into this, because no one else is really doing what we're doing here at Extreme Health Academy in the natural healing space. We like to take every different healing modality, from physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, all of the different ways that we can heal ourselves, even energetic. And we're going to be adding content in there. We do add content every single month that teaches all of the stuff that we should have been taught at school. This stuff should be taught at school. Unfortunately, we don't get any teaching in our public education or private educational school system that tells us how to take care of this human body that we have for hopefully 80 to 100 years. We're not taught how to take care of it. I wish there was no need for Extreme Health Academy. I really do, because, it's like we should all be healthy, happy, and vibrant, right? And fulfilled and doing our mission. But unfortunately, that's not the case, and many people are sick. So make sure to check out the Extreme Health Academy. I'm telling you guys, it's going to be an awesome place. There's thousands of people in there. There's a whole forum, people talking about different things, helping each other. Just a tremendous community. New course content, Q&A calls every single week, live Q&A stuff where we're answering your health questions. It's just amazing. So make sure to check that out. And if you guys want, if you're not interested in any of the products in our store, you can use the code EHR14 for a free 14-day trial. If you purchase through our store, we'll give you a 30-day trial, but we just got to verify that you did make that purchase through our store. So that's kind of a benefit of that. Edna says it's hard to do some of the things when you're poor. You know what, Edna? There's a lot of things that you can do that require zero money. Like, in our store, we have amazing products. In my opinion, I use them. I love them. I use them every single day. I think they're amazing, right? But a lot of them are expensive. There's, $30,000 machines we have in there. There's, $800 rebounder. Some of these things you can't do, right? But there are so many things you can do, as I like to focus on the things that you can do. Let's all put together a list of things that we can do to improve our health that cost no money, right? You can breathe. You could focus on your breath. You can meditate. You can get outside and get full spectrum sun. You can improve your sleep. You can drink more water. Water technically might cost money because you might have to buy it. You can drink more water. You could fast. You could be more grateful. You could tell yourself affirmations. You could have more sex. You could be more kind to people. You could hang out with more people. There's so many things that you could do for your health that, I don't want anyone to ever think that they need any of these things that are in our store to be healthy. I know that's not you, Edna, and I know you don't think like that, but I just don't want people to think that they're not enough or they need all this money to be healthy, because really true health and longevity comes from within. And I can tell you that any of the people that are the long-lived people and that have lived a long time, they probably never even heard of a Bellicon rebounder, right? They probably never even heard of a Relax Far Infrared sauna. They probably never even heard of the things that we have in our store. These are all things to mitigate sort of the damaging effects of living in today's modern culture. Obviously, these people lived, 100 years ago plus, but I guess my point is that, it's bad for business. I should tell you that everyone should buy all the products in our store and blah, blah, blah. But what I want to really be honest with you guys about and tell you is that, your health is in your mindset and how you think and how positive you are. And sometimes health is more about what we're not doing than what we're doing. Like today's show is all about fasting. This is something that we, it's just simply avoiding food and the incredible health benefits of just avoiding food. So it's insane. Okay, so let's see. Edna says, I walk outside and grab a tree. That's awesome. Yeah. I agree. The books take 10 years or so to reach the educational system, and most of the good stuff is not taught in microbiome classes and nutritional classes. It's so true. It's so true. What passes off as education in today's world to me it's a complete joke, in my opinion. It's basically the school system, in my opinion, is a glorified babysitter that will take care of your kids so that you can work and we can work and, fight all of our lives to get out of debt, to have 11 years at the end of our life to have for ourselves. The whole system is completely broken. And it starts with what we're putting in our kids' minds in the educational system. And we should be teaching empowering information, right? All of this stuff. We should be teaching kids where money comes from, what's really going on in history, how to take care of their bodies, how to manage their money. We should teach kids how to be better people, how to connect with the earth, how to save the earth, all these things we should be teaching our kids. But we teach them like this useless information filled with facts. And they get some sort of squiggly line, and that squiggly line represents a letter B or a letter A, and because that squiggly line makes those shapes, we think they're good. And it's like, man, the education system is broken in our society. Daryl says, do you do coffee after 12? I do sometimes, yeah, I do. But what I do also is I make sure that if I do drink or consume coffee after 12, I try to do a sauna that day. And I try to do something physically active as well, like a workout or something. If I do a coffee later in the day, I make sure to get that, because I'm really affected by the caffeine. So if it is a caffeinated coffee, I'll try to do a workout, or I'll try to do a sauna, sweat that stuff out and get that stuff out of my system. That's awesome. Edna, that's cool. You do all those things I mentioned. That's great. ZZ Captain says, be sure to grab a tree that doesn't have ants on it. Nice. Yes, all I meant was it to be nice to be able to get some of these things. Yeah, and I know, Edna, what you were saying, but I wasn't really talking about you. I just meant like for other people that are listening. And it's just one of those things where I see people write in, and I just feel like people feel less than, or they don't feel like they have enough. And I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to, just people that have written in over the years, and people I know will think like, oh, I need a sauna and I can't get healthy if I don't have a sauna. I really want to empower all of you guys that we all have abundant health within us. It's there. We just need to, it's like carving out of stone. We need to chip away and to reveal what's already there, But yeah, it is really cool, Edna. I really like your desire to get some of these things because, when I see people like you who are interested in improving their health, and I think it's really, for me, I think it's important on one hand to realize that true health, real vibrance and energy, it comes from your mindset. It comes from within yourself, right? And at the same time, it's also really fun to turn your home into like a healing space. Turn your home into somewhere like a place where you can heal. And so if you want to jump on the IMRS PEMF mat, you can do that. Or if you want to jump on the rebounder and then get in your sauna, you can do that. And so it's really nice to have these options at your, it's kind of like having a home gym, but it's a home wellness center and a place where you can go in your home and heal. And so I'm really encouraged, Edna, that you're interested in it, because a lot of people are just like, they just want to buy a new car. They want to buy some trinket. They want to spend money on things that are going to be detrimental to their health, but they're not going to want to spend money on things that are going to improve their health. So the fact that you even want to do these things is amazing, So I think that's amazing. Pure water each morning, especially add pink salt, $2, $4 in my water, or other trace mineral supplements that are about 10 to 20 bucks. Kate says, I used to walk and park and hug trees, etc. I hear ya. Yeah, remember that, Kate? In our old apartment in San Clemente, you'd hug trees. That was so rad. So funny, too. Edna says, I fast for 18 to 20 hours a day. You've beaten me. Have been doing keto for over a year. Have lost over 85 pounds off all meds. No more inflammation. No more knee injections. Oh, my gosh, Edna. Talk about a transformation. That's amazing. Wow. So Edna's in our chat room talking about her experience doing keto and intermittent fasting together. Fasting for 18 to 20 hours a day. Have been doing keto for over a year. Lost 85 pounds off of all medication. No more inflammation. No more knee injections. Whoa, that's amazing. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. That's amazing. Gosh, you should start a blog and tell people how you did that. That's awesome. MK Kush says, or Zeno Chaos says, I'll use PayPal credit if I need to. The healthier I get, the more money I'll be able to make. Yeah, that's so true. Invest in yourself, my friends. Invest in yourself. Whether that's personal development courses you could buy, audio, video, digital programs, healing tools. The biggest thing you could ever do is invest in yourself. That's why we do this show. That's why we're doing what we're doing, is because this is ultimately an investment in ourselves, you know? And when you know better, you have the choice to do better. You're an Animal says, that's awesome, Edna. Keep it up, because the healing process is gradual and can take a few years for max results. That's true. Justin, you forgot to mention running after twins, the best exercise. Oh my goodness, right? How are your twins? Running after twins. Yeah, when they get mobile, that's going to be crazy, right? Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, everyone's wishing Edna congratulations. That's so cool. That's what's so cool. Edna, keep going on that. You know, I loved if you have a blog or more of your story, I'd love to hear more about that. It's pretty incredible. So Daryl says, does coffee break the fast? And so I asked Dr. Nadia that question. If you weren't able to hear that, you can go back on the replay. And she quickly said, well, it really depends what you mean by break the fast. Does it mean that you're going to raise insulin levels, or does it mean that you are going to decrease autophagy in the body as a result of eating and consuming something? She tends to think that in some people, coffee will break the fast in terms of creating an insulin response. In some people, it doesn't. So I think the best thing to do would be to get your insulin checked, probably before and after drinking coffee. That would probably be the best way. For me, I just say in my life, the way it works now is, I just don't do coffee until I'm in my feeding window. Edna says, oh, I will never go back to the way I was. Edna, I'm curious, what was the catalyst? Like, what made you change? That's really what interests me the most when people have radical transformations like this. Like, what was it? Were you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Like Joe Cross said when he was on our show, did that whole documentary? Or did you just see other people in your life and didn't want to end up like them? Motivation is huge, and it's really important to have, like I said before, different forms of motivation. Like if you want what everyone else in your family has, as the quote says, just keep doing what everybody else is doing. That means eating fast food, going to bed late at night, which is one of my problems, or challenges, I should say, exposing yourself to fake light, toxins, chemicals, fast food, all that stuff. You want what everyone else has, which is 1 out of every 3 women are going to be diagnosed with cancer, and 1 out of every 2 men diagnosed with cancer at least once in their lifetime. And 23,000 people a day die as a result of some kind of cancer. So if you want that, then just do what everyone else is doing. And if you want something different, what it requires is habits every single day that we change, doing something different every single day. Edna says, my doctor was going to put me on statins, and I said, no, good for you. And that did it. I was a sugar addict, a carb addict. Isn't that crazy how much I quit cold turkey? Wow. So you're one of those people that are opposite of me. But you know what? I could probably do what you do if I was faced with a doctor wanting me to be put on statins. But since I'm really healthy and, work out and fit and, take care of myself and have been doing so for, over a decade now, I'm really, really healthy. So I have the sort of luxury to sort of ease into things. But if I was facing something like that, for sure I could do it. But it is challenging, right? Being a sugar addict and carb addict. Miss Vicky says, it's good to know I'm not the only one who hugs trees. Wow, and Edna's 66. That's great. That's amazing. Vicky, you know what? I got your email the other day and about what was the name of that person? I forget. But I'm going to look into getting her on the show and see if she would be a good fit. I have to see more about what she's doing. I forgot what her name was, but a women's health thing. So thanks, Vicky, for your email. I appreciate that. Get a lot of emails every day, and it's hard to get back to everybody. So, but since I see you here now, I appreciate that. Hugging trees, as funny and weird as that sounds, I think there's something going on with that in terms of your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and what it does, because you're on a physical level, you're connecting, you're grounding to the earth through the tree. But I think there's something more going on. Hugging a tree, as hippie and weird and funny as it sounds, I think there's something really going on there, because it's like when I'm on the rebounder and I smile, it's like you just feel good, because the rebounder itself is creating dopamine and endorphins and making you feel good. You're flushing things out. You feel amazing, and then you smile on top of that. There's studies on smile therapy. People that smile and overcome diseases. I mean, so it's similar to that. I would imagine hugging a tree because you're connecting directly with nature. You're an Animal says, I chug 16 to 24 ounces of water each morning, and my first meal is one of these coffee smoothies. Then I eat one meal, ideally with no grains. If the food is not the best, I mix in hemp seeds. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you're an Animal. Do you do? It's funny calling people by their name. Do you do like intermittent fasting yourself, or do you primarily just do that? That's interesting. Vicky is the best. I'm gonna hug Vicky. It's the best. I'm gonna hug trees from now on. Yeah, it's I don't know. I think there's something like, to this whole forest bathing idea and reconnecting with nature. I don't know. Something intuitively to me seems like that's going to be really beneficial. It's one of those things too where if someone were to tell me that smiling, this is what it's like on our show. If someone were to tell me that smiling or hugging trees is not has no scientific benefits to your health. To me, when we have people on our show that disagree with what I think, it doesn't really matter what I think, but that I disagree with, it doesn't really matter what anybody else says, right? If you feel convicted about something, then that's what it becomes for you. You know what I mean? And so if you really feel convicted and you feel strong and sure about something, make sure not to attach to that, obviously. We don't want to be attached to our beliefs because our beliefs aren't us. We're more than our beliefs, right? But if you feel strongly about something and you hear someone on our Extreme Health Radio that you completely disagree with, then just don't listen to the show. Or I like to just expose myself to all kinds of information and try to see what angle they're coming at this with. And so I really enjoy that. And I like to entertain different options. I don't agree with a lot of people that, are on our show. But I like to talk to them and just bring that as a healing option, You're an Animal says, trees do have a voltage potential gradient from the roots and to the top levels. There's a kind of field from the tree. Yeah, same with the earth as well, right? There's definitely a voltage coming off the earth and a magnetic charge. And when we reconnect with that, beautiful things happen. And if you read like The Secret Life of Plants, or if you get into Rudolf Steiner's work, you're going to learn quickly that there's some invisible element that's happening with trees and with nature that we just can't measure yet. So reconnecting with that through hugging a tree, as odd as it sounds, I think would be, if everyone hugged a tree, it's like when we walk our dogs throughout our neighborhood, there's this really great flower that we always smell. And so reconnecting, stopping every once in a while and reconnecting with nature, and if that means hugging a tree or smelling a flower, I'm telling you, there's something beneficial about that. You're an Animal says, I'm pretty much perpetually intermittent fasting. That's awesome. My body really wants food more than what I currently do. That's great. Jacqueline says, oh my goodness, repent from your sins. You must be born again. My eating window is 7 to 8 hours. Outside of this is water. Okay, let's do this. Yeah, we just removed that comment. My eating window is 7 to 8 hours. Outside of this is water. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. That's what it comes down to: self-respect, self-love. Right? You have to love yourself to go so far as to avoid eating food, right? Because food is the ultimate addiction. And so to love yourself enough to not eat food, it shows some level of personal growth and spiritual development. And so when you have a strong sense of who you are and a strong sense of self-love, then I think it's you're on the path of healing for sure. I just started to realize how far removed from nature I've been. I'm going to reverse that now. Yeah, Edna, all of this stuff that we talk about on our show, it could almost be summarized in one thing: reconnect with nature. Because ultimately, we're trying to figure out what our diet is, what we should be eating, and food is just a repository of light that comes from the sun that is part of our nature, right? We're eating light when we eat food. And so the more you can spend time outside, spend time breathing fresh air, spend time reconnecting with people, the more time we can reconnect with nature, the healthier we're going to be. There's just no way around it. So the more time, it's also true that the more time we spend indoors, the sicker we're going to be. So it's really important for us to reconnect with nature on every level possible. And that's what Extreme Health Radio is all about. So I hope you guys enjoyed that show. We ran kind of long. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to check out the Extreme Health Academy if you want to join and get access to everything we have going on there every single month. Oh yeah, Steamy Chick. That's right. Thank you, Vicki. And make sure to check out the Extreme Health Academy, and make sure to check out our store. And we're going to be adding some more products to that store pretty soon as we continue to fill out that store. We're doing a lot of cool stuff, trying new things, and that's going to be fun. So make sure to check that out. I have an appointment in a couple hours with a lady from Nano V, so that'll be fun. We're not going to broadcast that, but that's an interesting new technology, and she's going to be showing me some stuff about her products there. So want to make sure to do that. I got to get home. I got to go break my fast, and love you guys. You are amazing. And I will see you, on Wednesday morning at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. You're an animal. I hope to see you there. And Vicki and Edna, all of you guys are amazing. Thank you guys for joining us. And I hope to see you, and Daryl and Maria, Zeno Chaos, ZZ Captain, all you guys are just awesome. Thank you for being a part of this. Hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday at 10:45. We love you very, very much. Let me know if you have any questions, anything like that. I'd love to help you out, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use, non-use